Welcome to another installment of the Final Scoop podcast. My name is Robert Schinetsky, the supplement engineer. Joining me as always is my international band of brothers, Robert Samborsky, Apollon Nutrition, Lukasz, Rytkowski. We're flying a man down today, Shane Smith at stack.com. It's Valentine's Day over in New Zealand, so maybe him and the wife are having a little one-on-one time or something like that, and it's way past Grandpa's bedtime, so TJ as well is out of commission for this week. But we have a very, very suitable fill-in this week. We have the CEO of Muscle Insider, Mr. Scott Welch. Scott, welcome to the program, sir. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad, but I got to get a little bit more stimmed up to keep up with these guys. And they don't have Hooligan here in Canada, so I'm mad at this guy over here. Because if they did, I'd be able to keep up the intellect with you guys. And but I'm excited to be here. You know, I think it's really great to find people that love supplements as much as me, as much as I do. And this is no better way to spend a Valentine's weekend than on this particular shows with the supplement engineers.
Amen to that, man.
Outstanding. Well, Scott, we are glad to have you in. For the listeners tuning in on the live stream, thank you for joining us as always. Post up any comments, questions, queries, quips, smart aleck remarks you have for us. Off-topic banter is enjoyed and relished as well, so post up anything. We will get to everything and anything you guys throw at us during our we're usually on for about 2 hours or so on these podcasts. So anything you guys got, let us know. Could be anything: sports, training, nutrition, favorite movies, favorite cocktails, whatever you guys have. We're fine with that. And if you enjoy what we're doing here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the podcast with family, friends, and loved ones. And if you listen to us on iTunes or any other podcast listening platform, please give us a 5-star review if you enjoy our content. That helps us climb up in the almighty algorithm that kind of dictates and manipulates everything that we consume these days. So let's jump right into it, Scott. Give us a little bit of background, the founding of Muscle Insider, how you got acquainted with supplements, your passion for it, and we'll go from there.
Great. I grew up as a kid just wanting to be huge like your dad, and taking supplements. I think one of the normal questions I see you ask is, what was your first supplement you took? And mine was the Flintstone vitamins. So obviously that gets you bit by the bug. You want to be strong like Bam Bam and all those people. But as time went on, I got into sports nutrition supplements when I was in grade 5, lifting weights in grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, just on and on. But the real change happened in high school, where I took up bodybuilding. My parents moved to a small town, didn't have anything else to do but do bodybuilding stuff. So I started doing that, and then started to take protein powder and things like that. And reading the different magazines at the time, and we can touch on that at some point, is how important magazines were at influencing sort of how supplement use becomes, and the integration between what are the athletes that Joe Weider was sort of pushing, and then what were the products that they were pushing. And that sort of made you want to use the products in those magazines. But then when you picked up a different magazine, like you picked up Iron Man magazine, they owned Muscle Link, which was a supplement line by them. You picked up Muscle Media at the time, and that was owned by EAS. So you started wanting to use EAS products. And then when you looked at Muscular Development magazine, that was owned by the Blackman family, which owned Twin Lab at the time. So then you wanted just the Twin Lab supplements. And the media platform became the vehicle for making you consume supplements, because they didn't have the internet and things like that. It was just in its infancy. But that has sort of evolved. So I did that, and all I knew at the end of high school was nutrition, training, bodybuilding. I read all the books from Muscle Mag at the time, Robert Kennedy, the publisher. And I did a degree in nutrition, because at the end of high school, I didn't know anything about history. I didn't know anything about, politics or anything like that. But I could tell you what was on page 32 of Flex magazine, and I could tell you who was on the cover, and, stuff like that. So I decided to follow my passion for nutrition. I did a degree in nutrition at Ryerson University in Toronto. While I did that, I turned every single project that I could into an opportunity to learn about supplements. So when it was the public speaking course they made us take, because I was going to be a dietitian, I did a presentation on the benefits of designer whey protein, and did that in front of the class for my public speaking course. When it was statistics, I did the statistic analysis of creatine monohydrate in phosphagen studies that EAS had funded at the time, and in order to learn more about the stats of the study manipulation or the highlights. So everything I did was to be that. But in Canada, you would have to become, to be a dietitian, you have to follow the Canada Food Guide, which is, have white bread, have cheese and dairy alternatives, and pork is the same as, as chicken, and egg whites weren't encouraged, and things like that. And I just realized that as a sports nutrition enthusiast, I didn't believe in the Canada Food Guide to coach athletes. But to be a registered dietitian, you have to use the registered dietitian's practices, which is the Canada Food Guide. I didn't think that was suitable for athletes. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches was what one teacher told me. She coaches the Toronto Maple Leafs, and she goes, "Yeah, I have them on peanut butter and jam sandwiches in between plays." And I was just like, "This is a laugh," like, you know. So I decided at that time to work. I worked part-time for Muscle Mag International. At the time, was the largest fitness magazine here in Canada. They had licensing around the world. They were based in Toronto, and MuscleTech was in every single, you know, so many ads that were in that. So I kind of wanted to work there. So I picked up the label, looked at the phone number, phoned the hotline, left my name and number. And then I got a call one day when I was in the middle of my last semester, and I got a chance to do an interview with them. And at the time, it was a funny story, but I was interviewed with a guy named Dr. Richard Lefebvre. So I thought, oh, wow, this is a doctor. So I went to the interview, got the job offer. And obviously at the time, you know, you're not sure if you want to stay in school or go into work in the work world. But they were small. They had less than 20 staff at the time. This was 1998. And so I took the job. My first day on the job, my boss wasn't there. And I was supposed to be in research and development, and there was no marketing department. That was just one department called research. So I get there, and there's a stack of bodybuilding magazines on my desk, and they said, "You got to read all these things and tell us if you think we should advertise in any of them." That was my first assignment. So I couldn't believe it. I'm getting paid to read bodybuilding magazines, which all of us read maybe as kids. And the second day he wasn't there as well, but they had a new stack of bodybuilding magazines for me to read. So I was reading it. It's just, to me, it was a dream job. Third day, they said he's no longer working here. Dr. Richard Lefebvre is no longer employed here. So I'm like, okay, who's in the research? It's just me. So then the phone calls came in. Somebody said, the call center said, somebody's pregnant and they've used hydroxycut. Are they able to use, is that damaging to the baby? All I did was thought, okay, fake it till you make it. Let me close the door. I can find out that. And I called the pharmacist. I called. So I started to realize that. And then in time, they said, he really wasn't that much brighter than you. He was a vet. And I was like, a vet?
Yeah.
And then they said, yeah, that's the doctor you're working for, was a doctor of veterinary medicine. But I saw him in the lab coats and all these things. And I sort of thought, man, I gave my whole academic career up thinking that I was going to work for a medical doctor. I didn't ask what type of doctor they were. But, he really knew his stuff with supplements, really knew his stuff in that. But then over time, I learned that, what were some of the things that the company was doing. So that was interesting because MuscleTech was a very aggressive marketer, as you guys all know, of what they did. Yep. But what I discovered when I was there is they were doing a lot more things behind the scenes that they just didn't take the time to market. Like, they were the first ones that I'm aware of that did a creatine study with the University of Pittsburgh in lacto-ovo vegetarians, and this was in '97. And they showed that vegetarians obviously are going to respond even better to creatine than non-vegetarians. Mm-hmm. But they never ever really did anything much with that. So I immediately said, look, if you're going to sponsor research, you need to tell people that you're sponsoring research. And I had connections to University of Toronto with some of the people I went to school with. So then we started to fund research there. And University of Toronto discovered insulin. So there's a huge wing there with the use of, the study that showed that 10 meals versus 3 meals is better than, having 3 meals is not as good as efficient with your insulin. That was all discovered by a guy named Dr. Jenkins, who was University of Toronto. So there's a whole wing of diabetes research there. So we started to look at funding research there. And that was really awesome because we now started to sort of see, we had to market it aggressively, but how could we take creatine and increase absorption with the use of carbohydrates? And then even actually, believe it or not, increasing the water volume of a standard amount of carbohydrates will actually increase the speed of absorption. And that was really fascinating. We found that it was around 1 liter of water mixed with 75 grams of dextrose was going to outperform the standard, 2 cups that you were doing. It would be in terms of speed of absorption. So getting to be a part of that was cool. And MuscleTech became bigger and bigger and bigger. And then probably the breakout product for them. I mean, Celtec was on fire all the time. Hydroxy had ephedrine in it, so you really couldn't go wrong with that. And then the breakout product was NitroTech, which was from the word nitric oxide. That's where the name came from.
Yeah.
That was a colleague of mine who was at University of Toronto, was studying ginseng and showing that the ginsenosides would increase nitric oxide. The owner realized, and he overheard me talking about this with the head of research, and it was Ontario-grown ginseng that was shown to increase nitric oxide. And we asked the researcher, what does this nitric oxide do? And he said it increases circulation and blood flow. The owner said, man, imagine if we had a whey that actually had better circulation, better delivery of the amino acids, better delivery of all of the nutrition inside a whey isolate. You know, maybe we could have something better than just whey isolate. And that's where the term, so we created what I am aware of is the very first nitric oxide stimulating product was actually NitroTech. And in the complex in it, I believe it was called nitroxygen, is the very first. And then funny enough, one of the guys working there said, we should put this in a pill. I'd like to buy just this ingredient complex and sell that. And the head of research at the time was an academic who, as you guys know, sometimes the academics, what works in Medline isn't going to work in the real world. And what consumers want isn't necessarily on Medline. They want, like, you won't find any fat loss studies on DMHA, but if you take that, you're not going to feel like eating and you're going to lose fat.
Yeah.
But there's no Medline research that shows that you're going to burn fat with DMHA, but anyone who knows and uses it knows that it would be very good for a fat burner. So you constantly had that struggle with people from just the academia who didn't work out and didn't really understand the hands-on side. He said, oh, there's no way that would work because there's no research that shows that. And lo and behold, Ed Bird later came out with NO2, which was arginine alpha-ketoglutarate in a pill. And that became a whole category, which now we have the nitric oxide category as a total category.
Right.
So we had a chance I did some really cool things there. Formulated at the time when marketing was with research joined at the hip. And in any supplement company, you have to have that where the formulators and the marketers are really close. And the sales guy has to have a say because the sales guys know if they're good, they know what consumers are looking for, what retailers are looking for. And then you have to have the lawyer in the room or someone in regulatory affairs who has a say because they could say, hey, great idea, guys, but that ingredient is banned. Great, like, you know, I talked at the beginning of this before this interview started that in Canada, Yohimbe is illegal. So if you only have distribution in Canada, you'd be foolish to put Yohimbe in your formula because it's not compliant. So sometimes what works on paper is great, but what your business needs is maybe something that involves consideration from the different departments. And that's sort of how we approach supplement formulating was everyone had a seat at the table who had knowledge. I mean, you had to know your shit. You had to know that this is not going to work because of the shipping that's going to happen overseas. It's going to go to India. It's going to have the temperature. It's going to melt the bars. Or you know that an RTD is not going to sell in Australia. When it gets to Australia, it's going to be $15 for the RTD. You had to understand that before you suggested to come out with another RTD. You know, so you kind of, if you sit in those rooms long enough and the people that they brought in were really smart, then you started to wear a bit of an operations hat. You wore a bit of a scientist hat. You wore a lawyer's hat because we were selling ephedrine and caffeine, and we were one of 5 brands in Walmart US. And when overweight people use diet pills and they take too many of them and they take energy drinks and everything else, and then they go and they try to either take LSD or they do all kinds of different things, you get class action lawyers who can sue you for malpractice and, you know, things like that.
Right.
So now you kind of knew how to insulate yourself against the ambulance chasers. So that kind of was something I got exposure to at a young age. Going through that, we grew to, my staff were roughly 75 staff that reported to me. And I was shipping and approving myself 600 pages of print a month. And the advertising campaign in TV, you're talking 30 million a year in advertising that I was responsible for. And we grew to #1 globally. I wouldn't say, I'd say the #1 global supplement company only because the North American sales were so high. But I won't say that when I was there, MuscleTech was #1 in Europe. I mean, you had SciTech and you had Maxi Muscle and you had, you know, some of these other companies, obviously, that have done very, very well over there, All Stars and some of these guys. But that came with it where you now were a target for class action lawyers. You were a target for staff trying to poach your staff. You were a target for government restrictions on things. And you had opportunities too. And one thing was really interesting is when we became the #1 selling low-carb bar at the time, then all of a sudden the bar manufacturers that had better technologies were contacting us before contacting the other bar companies.
Scott,
and now...
sorry to interrupt you. Which bar you mean?
NitroTech.
Oh, NitroTech. Okay.
Yeah, NitroTech bar at one time was the #1 selling bar, the #1 selling low carb bar, and we were after pure protein at the time. And frankly, when you call the manufacturer, they say these are gels. That's what these bars are. They're going through like a toothpaste, and they have a shape. And we have a certain level of gels that we use. And the best gel we have goes to our #1 supplement company, our #1 vendor. And so as they invent other sugar replacers and things and softening agents, they reserve that for their top customer. So sometimes like a company like Quest or One Bar, they would always have an advantage over everyone else. So if you even wanted to do, I actually remember sitting there and asking for specific specs and them saying, we can do it, but we're not doing it for you. And it was like, why? Well, because if this is the level of sales that this company is doing, and that's why they get preferential treatment. No different than you call a contract manufacturer and you want line time in your Apollon, sorry, my apologies. You wouldn't get the same line time at a milk specialties group as Dymatize would get, because they're just, you know, they're going to do metric tons of this stuff, and it's not fair. So it kind of gives the top companies an unfair advantage over the mid-sized guys.
Is that something they've worked into the contract with? Like, so is that stipulation being made by Quest and One Bar, or without, I guess we can't, not using them specifically, but say like the #1 bar company at that specific manufacturer, is that a stipulation made on the part of the bar company that's selling that much, or is it like the manufacturer is saying, hey, you're our highest volume client, we're just not going to sell it to it? So how does that work?
What generally will happen is the contract manufacturers, they send you samples. And so you're sitting there and you didn't even want a s'mores, and all of a sudden a box shows up and there's a s'mores of your same product. Mm-hmm. And like, wow, this is delicious. And you're actually tasting it, and it's really, really soft. It's softer than the current ones you have. And then you find out that they've behind the scenes figured out a way to do certain things, or those layered bars. You'd see a layered bar that's low carb and you're like, wow, this is really good. So that's actually one thing that's interesting, is a lot of people think you try some of these flavors and you're like, wow, why would they come out with that flavor? And like strawberry cheesecake, man, that seems like a terrible flavor. And a lot of times what happens is you're selling your peanut butter chocolate and your double chocolate. Those will always be your #1 sellers, just because most people like chocolate caramel. Most people like double chocolate. Look at the candy bar industry. And those are always going to be your safer products. But you get sick of them as staff. You're eating so many of these things. And all of a sudden someone sends you a breakfast, an apple crisp or something like that. And you end up swallowing. Everyone around the boardroom swallows it. And then the bean counters in the building they swallow it. And they're like, oh, this is really good. You know, my wife really likes these too. And you're sitting there saying, this is not going to sell overseas. This is not going to sell. Like, once you have a box of these things, you're not going to want to buy a second box. Right. You know, and so sometimes I know this is a roundabout. To answer your question directly, I would say that it would be an unwritten rule, unless you were a very big player like Quest, or you were Power Bar, or you were Vector, Cliff Bar. If you're Cliff Bar, you have so much buying power. #1 selling bar in North America. We don't even consider that in what the four of us are into. But Cliff outsells everybody, but we don't consider that in our set. So when you see the technologies that you see with clusters and things that you'll see with them, or the Kind bar, you'll see it oftentimes with them. And I believe part of it is because of the relationship they have and the buying power they have. So either the manufacturer presents them with the new technology, or they themselves have people who are trying to find ways to push the envelope. And generally that means when you're working for a big company, you're looking at Apollon Nutrition, you're looking at the small guys. Because if you look at them, because the small guys don't have the marketing budget, but they have the smarts. They have to have a better mousetrap. So a lot of the stuff that I've done over my career has been looking at the small guys and seeing like one of my favorite to get ideas from was Patrick Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
And this will blow your mind, but in 2003, I discovered 1,3-dimethylamine in the geranium oil extract in his AMP product in 2003. Patrick Arnold never made any money off 1,3. He should have made the most money off of it because he's the guy who brought it to the market, but he never knew how to market it. And the big brands like USP Labs just stole his idea. And I took that ingredient to the research guy at the time, and I said, geranium oil extract. I said, Patrick Arnold is a knack for finding gray market ingredients that are disguised inside common things that are legal. So it might be something in nutmeg, it might be something in pine needles, it might be something in, but he has found a way that under DSHEA will allow something that he knows should be banned.
Mm-hmm.
But geranium oil extract has something in it, and it was the 1,3 that he's just labeling it as geranium. And when you swallow this pill, is amp fat burner, it would blow. It was phenomenal. And what the biggest tragedy to me is that when ephedrine got banned in the U.S., everyone was looking for ephedrine alternatives, and 1,3 was there in 2003, but no one took Pat Arnold serious. And I remember taking this to a researcher. I know exactly who the guy is. And he said, there's nothing on Medline with that. It's just an oil that actually has essential oils inside it.
Mm-hmm.
And, anyway, sorry to ramble, guys. I don't mean to ramble. Sometimes this is what happens when I start talking.
Oh, it's actually very, very interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Scott, I have a question. And considering that you're in Canada, and we know Canada is, one of the strictest rules in the world when it comes to specifically stimulants and just supplements in general. Clearly, based on what you said, I get it that you are not really that aggressive or against stimulants. In fact, I detect a little being fan of stimulants, so to speak. I might be wrong. How do you go about when people when people talk to you about it, considering that, Canada is so strict, and you probably, I don't know if I can go that far as saying that advocate for stimulants, so to speak. I mean, we clearly know the data is there that they're not as bad, or maybe not even bad at all, if not abused. But how do you go if you do a seminar or an interview or something like that, considering that you're Canadian, how do you go about differentiating between the laws that are obviously excessive and probably wrong? And I don't know if the word advocating the use of stimulants, but how do you balance it?
Being a Canadian is very different because we learn here, like we don't have saccharin, it's illegal. We can't sell EAAs here inside an energy drink that is of a high enough dose to make it worth your while. If you have, this is funny, is no energy drink here can have beta-alanine in it. Now you can put it in a powder, but you put it in a can, a carbonated can, because when Red Bull got approved here, the Red Bull formula became the benchmark for the energy drink licensing. Over here, you have supplement licensing and you have energy drink licensing are actually different. So if it's carbonated in a can, it's a 12-month process. If it's a powder, it's a 6 to 9 month process. Unless it's a food like a protein or a bar, then it's actually very quick. So for me, I have known not a lot different, but a lot of the work that I do, like at MuscleTech, 90% of our sales were in the US. So I had to formulate and market for a US audience. And with a lot of the companies, I've worked for roughly 40. One was Nutrex, you guys are familiar with, and I brought the 1,3-dimethylamine idea to them, not taking responsibility to saying I was the only one who thought of it, but this was the time when I was there, it was trending. So I'm not ethically wrong. I don't have a problem with stimulants. The laws in each country are different. I believe Russia is now against Yohimbe, I think very strictly. And different countries change their rules accordingly. But as a marketer, I have to sometimes formulate within the rules I'm given. And that's really your job, And in the U.S., it's a lot. I mean, you guys touched on this a few weeks ago at Dan Lorenco. It's funny that the retailers become the regulators if the FDA isn't. And the other regulator are the class action lawyers or the high tech of the industry. As you guys know, high tech took a stance against amino spiking themselves and started suing people because they weren't seeing the support from the FDA on it. So they just did it themselves. And so you have class action lawyers that figure out that this is how they can make money. They sometimes are the ones who clean up the industry, even though at the time they're chastised because they're considered ambulance chasers, and some of them rightfully are. But let's face it, if you buy protein and you want 20 grams of protein, you want a whole intact protein. You don't want 15 grams of protein and 5 grams of glycine.
Correct.
Another common trick is 1 gram of creatine will lab test out to 2 grams of protein. So one thing that supplement companies do is they put creatine into protein bars, and you put 3 grams of creatine into a protein bar, and you get 6 grams of protein on the label. That'll lab test out as that because of the nitrogen content.
Yeah.
Now, and then, you know what, in the end of the day, I think creatine for performance is great for a bar. I mean, you're going to get, some benefits. But what I don't like is if you're a bodybuilding competitor or bikini competitor and you're just having a bar, you kind of want to know that you're going to get a bit of the water retention inside the muscle. And you just want to know what you're taking is what you're taking. So that and beta alanine will also lab test out as protein with the nitrogen content. That's often used. So my job is they give me a price point and they say, look, this is the price you're working with. I remember I formulated, which I'll touch on after, but I left MuscleTech and I started the supplement company. Well, I joined a supplement company that was under 10 staff. They were doing okay at the time. They were all working from home. So it was a very entrepreneurial opportunity. And it was a former head of research from MuscleTech had started his own. And he got to the point where he was doing under 10 million in sales, but he had, pretty good business. So I worked there and helped them launch a product called Slim Quick. And that was a really, sounds like a gimmicky name, just like Slim Fast and Slim Quick. And that became the #1 selling female fat burner for 7 years in North America. And we did $70 million in sales in 2 years from zero. So that's the fastest amount of sales growth I'm aware of. A lot of people like Rytkowski have said that, they're the fastest growing supplement company in history. I actually would argue that. I actually think that Wellnex went from 8 million to 120 million in 12 months. Or sorry, in 24 months. Now, I'll tell you right now that as soon as you go to 100 million, now you're on the radar for the FDA, the FTC, you're on the radar for class action lawyers. And I got sued for $100 million. I got named personally in that. I got sued in 30 different class action lawsuits in the US from ambulance chasing lawyers who wanted to extort us. And then I got sued by Unilever for Slim Fast, trademark name for Slim Quick versus Slim Fast. So I kind of thought I made it in weight loss because I got sued by the largest weight loss company in the world. And we had a bodybuilding supplement line in GNC, and we were doing $1 million a month with GNC US, which was good. But we were injecting money from mass market products into our sports nutrition brands. And then we did another one with Carmen Electra, called Envy. We did 20 million a year in that product. And then we started to get into Hootie and, things like that. But from there, being in all these lawsuits, I had to get out of these lawsuits, and I just worked there. I didn't own anything, but the lawyers didn't know I didn't know anything because my name was always on so much, being the head of marketing. And so eventually I settled all of that stuff, got it behind me, and I just said I'm going to consult for supplement companies rather than own a supplement company or be that tied. I'd rather just play it safe for a bit and advise people. So now when I bring that up to you is that sometimes a client will say you have $5.50 for the finished product with a carton and an insert and do your best. And, you have to work with that price point. There's only so much you can do. You can't maybe use the branded ingredients that you want to use. And if they say it's for a mass market consumer, then you have to really build in the efficacious ingredient doses that will get the lawyers off your ass. So you have maybe 1 or 2 branded ingredients that will give you your claims. And you maybe don't put Yohimbe in because someone in Walmart's going to swallow it. They're going to use it, misuse it, and then they're going to try to sue you. So you kind of have to, tailor your formula and your marketing strategy based on what freedom you're given. And sometimes you don't, oftentimes you don't formulate what you would use yourself. And you don't really get on the moral line of, do you yourself believe this works? And so that's why I have Muscle Insider, because with Muscle Insider, it allows me to help people how to train, how to eat, how to supplement, and kind of do some good. I think that by having two different companies with the media source and then with the marketing consulting, I can kind of do my job with the marketing, but I can also, for my hobby, I can do something where I'm helping people how to train. I'm interviewing different people. And I kind of get I feel like I'm using my education for good if I'm helping people follow a keto diet or I'm giving them training advice. Whereas hawking diet pills that maybe don't work as well as you're marketing them, there's, at the end of the day, you're not really as proud of that kind of work as you are maybe, helping somebody improve their strength on the bench press or, things like that. So the two worlds balance me out, I guess, give me two different perspectives on it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What year did you start Muscle Insider, and how has the progression of the company been to the present day?
Great question. 2009, I got approached by an investor, and he wanted to start a magazine. He said he had tried for 3 years but couldn't get the time to do it. When I was in my previous job after MuscleTech, we had started a magazine then. We had it distributed through Europa, through Vitamin Shop, through GNC. I was part of this program back in the day. You guys remember with the NO2 launch, where they had the book for a buck program, where if you pay the clerk $1, you get a free book, and the clerk gets the dollar. And if the clerk's making $5.50, and every person who comes in, they say, "Hey, how you'd like a book? It's a nitric oxide book. It's only $1." Most people will say, "Yeah, what the heck? $1, it's going to help me get better." So we applied that with the magazine. I started the magazine in 2010 at the Arnold Classic, and at the time, we were distributing through a supplement company. We got distribution into 41 countries, but that ideal was great. Then I learned quickly that what's the point in distributing into 39 of those countries if English isn't the first language, And so that kind of really problem after problem with me and the business partner at the time happened. But the deal we had at the beginning was if either one of us wanted to get out of it, then the other could continue. So thankfully, in June of 2010, he got cold feet and said, "I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore." And he had sunk in, and he was an investor, $340,000 at that time. And that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my money, because if it was my money, I wouldn't have started Muscle Insider, because I knew print was dead or dying. And I was doing quite well with my consulting and blogging and things like that. So I realized at that time, to make it survive, I would have to just take it into Canada and use the European model, where, as you guys know, a lot of times the European distributor would own their own magazine. Like Fitness Authority in Poland owned Muscular Development Poland, and then they used Muscular Development Poland to put all of the products that they happen to distribute into the magazine.
Interesting.
In England, Tropicana is the largest distributor in the UK. They would have the right, they would use Muscle Mag UK, the licensing of that. They would then just put the ads for the products they distribute into that country. So it becomes a catalog. And in Greece, that was the same way with Muscle Mag. In Spain, that was the same way. Australia is still in the place there. So the distributor in Australia, the largest one, Nutrition Systems, they are the distributor licensee of Inside Fitness, which was an offshoot. Former guy from Muscle Mag started his own. And so he uses the magazine and he puts ads for the products he distributes into the magazine. And now it becomes a bit of a propaganda tool. I don't mean that to be a negative. That just becomes what it is.
Yeah.
And that's, that's how it kind of works. So got that going. I talked to a distributor in Canada who I was tight with. And I said, "Look, why don't we distribute this magazine through all the stores you service in Canada? I'll make it as good as a magazine you would pay for, but we'll give it for free to the stores. And now the supplement stores can give it out for free with each purchase only. But it would have a price of $7.99 on the cover. It would look as good as any other magazine. And what I'll use is social media and online to build awareness for this product that you can only buy in an independent channel store. You can only get it. And you can only get it if you buy a supplement.
Yeah.
So the retailer's happy because they have a gift with purchase. The supplement companies are happy because they have now a vehicle that they can affect change in the supplement store. They can affect sales. And the consumer likes it because if the quality of the magazine is as good as Muscle Fitness, obviously on a cheaper level, So that's been the model, is digital first and then print second. We moved to bi-monthly eventually. And then we eventually saw the trend going where the magazine started to collapse. You saw that with Iron Man magazine got sold. Exercise and Health, Men's Exercise, Men's Workout, Natural Bodybuilding and Fitness, those 4 magazines shut down. Then you saw, who was it? Recently you saw Flex and Muscle and Fitness. You saw Flex get discontinued in print. You saw Muscle and Fitness remain. And then they sold Muscle and Fitness and Flex off to a contest promotion company. Muscle Mag shut down. They had 5 magazines under their group. They sold that off to a company who owns 80 magazines based in Colorado. They ran Muscle Mag for maybe a year. That shut down. So in general, print really died, and it just continued to go and go and go because people were going on to, Amazon to find out about what they should take, bodybuilding.com to get their information, Muscle and Strength, and some of the different websites to get their information, and the supplement companies, so the sell-through of these magazines and what was selling versus printing, there's a big difference. In publishing, it was really good. They have something called the sell-through rate, and this is something that's never talked about. That's kind of funny for the audience here. In magazine publishing, if you can sell 30% of the copies you print, that's considered to be phenomenal. Okay, that means 70% of them are shredded, but that's considered to be phenomenal. Now it goes down from there because what is really happening is they're selling 15%, 20%, 21%, even less. Now that was pre-COVID. So now when the supplement companies, the new guys coming up, they're more digital friendly. The Dan Larenkos, some of these guys now are in charge of these supplement companies. Now they're younger generation that grew up to the online world more. The older guys now have moved up in the ladder in the supplement companies or the owners, but the younger people are now in charge and they want to do more Google ads. They want to do YouTube ads. They want to, do Instagram posts and boost that way. So all those ad dollars are being swallowed up. And also the retailers are taking all the money because they want you to participate in their retail email blasts and their Google ads and their Facebook ads and things like that, or their giveaways. So now the dollars that were set aside for marketing for magazines is less and less. And so you become now on less and less and less margins. But one thing that's the biggest scam in publishing is almost a magazine buzz, like fitness magazines are no different. Next to Men's Health, I know of not one fitness magazine that's audited, meaning that there's a company called ABC that does an audit, which is an independent company that will audit your books to see how many are you printing and how many are you selling. So this is what happens. If I tell an advertiser, okay, Apollon Nutrition, I really want to have you an ad, and you'd say, how much for a page? And I say, okay, it's $1,000. You'd say, well, how many of these copies are printing? If I say, oh, it's 100,000 copies, you go, oh, Christ, that's a lot. So then you do the math on $1,000 divided by 100,000 copies, and then you can figure out how much it is.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, how many people are actually reading this magazine? I can say to you, okay, well, our sell-through is anywhere between, and I could say 20 to 40%. I could say 50 to 60%. You wouldn't know before this interview. You wouldn't know that 30% was a good number. So now I can show you now, if I just lie and say it's 40% or it's 30% or it's 20%, now it becomes worth less or more based on the verbal, just do you trust me? And there's no independent company auditing this stuff. And so now when you put the ads in and you wonder why they don't perform, it's because the publishers are printing less and less copies because you don't know how many they're printing. And that's where the copy cost is in the printing and the shipping, because the shipping is very expensive.
Right.
But look in any grocery store, look in any convenience store, where are the comic books? They don't exist like they did when we were kids in convenience stores. A magazine rack is less and less and less inches because the store has to have accountability on the cost, the square inches in the store, and they have to see how much profitability per square inch is in the store. And so now energy drinks are very small in terms of their width. They are very profitable. They turn very, very quick. So if I put my cash or I tie up that shelf space, that real estate in magazines, and I'm only selling, 5 or 6 of these, and it's this much width, I'm only making $3 or $4 perhaps, but I could have made way more money with that shelf space. That's why you see Walmart. That's why you see Chapters and Indigo is changing. Bookstores are getting crushed. And that was before COVID. Now, there was a study, I believe it's over 73% of all consumers believe that they risk themselves getting viruses if they grab a magazine or print a book. So now, doctors' offices, to reduce the liability, you won't see doctors' offices have magazines in the waiting room. You won't see gyms have the magazines in the waiting rooms, or sorry, in the cardio area. Mm-hmm. Or you might still see them, but you just see this disdain that now I'm exposing myself to 20 people's germs that I would get from this old magazine. And that, it doesn't matter if it's true, doesn't matter if we think people will really get sick versus not, it's the perception.
Right.
And if perception is there, then you're a walk-in clinic and you're supposed to be about health, but you're having a germ passing device sitting in the lobby. So now that number, those numbers that they inflated have now been cut at the knees because they can't add what's called pass along, which means how many other magazines, how many, you buy a magazine, you pass it to your friend, your wife may pick it up, your friend may pick it up. In a gym, there's a very high pass along. National Geographic, we all know that magazine, has a 20-person pass along. Every copy sold, 20 people will read. So it's phenomenal, but that was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And now with more information coming out online, people can get the Olympia results right away. They can get they can see the video. That's way better than like try to learn martial arts in a book versus a video. I mean, it's very difficult. So learning how to supinate when you curl is way easier to learn in a video than it is in print. So print has become obsolete, but what hasn't become obsolete is the belief that crossing the fingers, I think the days will come back, the days will come out. So we got out of print in last year, and I'm very glad we did. But, you know, we continue to just do the digital, and it's a more efficacious area to be in. But you have to keep on rejigging what you do because the same, I mean, you know, now we have Clubhouse, new social media app that's come up. Okay, well, there's another one I have to get in. I have to be invited in, you know, and how do I get a part of that? And, you know, and so as a media source, we're always trying to keep current with the trends of where is it going? And the hard part is I can't go on to musclefitness.com and see what I should do because I don't own a like Muscle Fitness makes their money off of putting on bodybuilding contests and amateur shows around the world with the Wings of Strength. I don't own my own contest promotion company, so I can't monetize that prestige of, hey, you can be on my website if you compete in my shows. So I'm stuck saying, okay, well, supplement reviews, people want that. You know, I can maybe I can add some of those to it.
Yeah.
I'd like to do podcasts, but I can't get any advertisers to sponsor my podcast. So do I put more of my savings into the podcast to just do it? Or do I find a way to show more value maybe for some of the things I'm currently getting paid for? Anyway, sorry guys, you got to stop me if I ramble because I just
this is definitely awesome because this is an area we've never addressed. It's like a whole sphere of like the health fitness supplement industry that we've never touched on before. So if it's not that we're not asking questions because we're not interested, it's just like I'm on like information overload right now because this is like a whole area that I've never even thought about, considered, or anything like that. So I'm like in full on like absorption mode right now. So yeah, definitely keep going. And for the listeners tuning in on the live stream, put any questions you have up for Scott or any of us, whether it's about print media, supplements, anything else. We're going to get to it all, but I wanted to get Scott's, you know, extensive background, which I didn't realize you were with MuscleTech and you know, brought that company up to where it was all that. I thought it was purely, you just had like the publishing and background like that. Before we go further, Scott, Captain Carbs Shane is he's off this week. I have a feeling it's already Valentine's Day in New Zealand, so maybe him and the wife are having a little one-on-one time, Sean. And the secret release from Apollon, I'm going to spoil it right now. It is a bikini calendar of Robbie wearing different G-string thongs.
Yes, I already bought 100 units, so they are already sold out.
Priscilla, that's the first comment. If you haven't shown anything else yet, just keep populating the comments. And for everybody else that's listening, sometimes YouTube gets a little stupid. It doesn't have its morning coffee or its nootropic stack and forgets to populate the comments. So just keep entering the comments in there, and we will eventually get to all of them. So, Scott, let's jump back to the magazine and the publishing thing real quick. It was the time, I feel like, and do you think, as somebody that's been on the publishing side and somebody that's written content for magazines, that the overall quality of content might be going down? Like the barrier to entry to write for these things is lower, and that a lot of companies, supplement companies or publishers like bodybuilding.com, and there's like people that you would think would be reputable, are outsourcing all of this copywriting to India and all these places that are, paying their people like 1 cent a word, and you're getting just rehashes. Like they're going up, finding the top SEO search result on Google, and then just, rewording it to make it look new and shiny, but it's really just, it's very, very just like shitty content.
Yes. When I started Muscle Insider, Chris Aceto charged us $1 US per word, and you couldn't cap how many words he would write. And he said, take it or leave it. And so I remember getting a $1,600 bill US and for a, post-workout nutrition piece. And he said, if you don't want to buy it, you have 10 days to pay me. And if you don't, then I think it was Muscle Development Poland or a different Flex Czech Republic, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
They'll buy it. So you got 10 days to pay for it, or it's going to be sold to them. So over time, the going rate was 50 cents per word. That US, if you're in Canada getting it, you're in Canadian currency, so you'll save about 30% on that. Mm-hmm. And so that became the norm. Then you could slowly, so in a magazine, this is kind of cool, you have what's called an ad edit ratio. Okay, so back in the day, Muscle Media was the top magazine. They had about a 22% ad edit ratio, which was 22% ads and then 78% editorial. Mm-hmm. What most magazines did was they formed, it was all a 1-to-1 edit ratio. So 140-page magazine has 70 pages of ads. Most magazines that you do, here's a good trick. If you want to test the health of any magazine, count the pages. So the first thing I do when I grab a magazine, grab Men's Health, grab Muscular Development, grab anything. Open it up, I count the number of pages. Okay, I put it down on a piece of paper. Then what I do is I start at the front and I start counting ad. I'm like 3, 7, 9. I just keep going all the way through. Then I write that number down. I calculate, I divide those two, and I can calculate the ad to edit ratio. Now what I do is I look at a magazine. It's usually about $1 a copy to print, depending on how many copies you print. If you print more, you get a larger cost savings.
Right.
Our first issue of Muscle Insider, we printed 100,000 copies, which cost roughly $60,000 US to print. And that was the largest printer, R.R. Donnelley in the US, largest printer in the US. Mm-hmm. So if you then know that a company is paying $2,000 a page for a magazine, and the only way, the beauty about my consulting job is the companies that I work for tell me where they spend their magazine, or what they spend and what they pay for Stacked, what they pay for Price Plow, what they pay for. So now I know with visibility, Muscle Development is selling this much for this. This is what a page is selling for on average. Mm-hmm. Now I go to another client, they show me their media plan, and I see how much money they're paying is less. So I already know that I can get $300 less per page on Muscle Development because I already know 5 other companies paying X dollars per page.
Yeah.
So when I call Muscle Development, it's different because they know I just referred business into them, so they don't screw me around on the price because they know I actually have the contract still of what they send for these other companies. So in that case, I just say it's $2,000 a page, and I count out that there's 60 pages of ads. I know there's $120,000 in revenue. And if I know that they're saying they print 250,000 copies, and if I know it's about 80 cents a copy, I can see what the profitability would be per magazine. Mm-hmm. And then if I know they're selling through roughly 30% in the best case scenario, if they claim, Muscle Development for years used to claim 250,000 copies printed. If that's true, then that means 30% of those are selling. That's in publishing, that's industry standard as great. So I'm not saying that if they say that they're doing 50% sell through, then they should be printing more copies, because if they printed 500,000 copies, they would sell even more. So right. If it's 30% on 250,000, they're selling 75,000 copies. And in publishing, the stores make money, the distributors make money. You make very, very little, maybe $1 for a copy sold. So the money in print in the 80s used to be in how many copies you could sell. What later on happened, this is actually funny, this is interesting, is most of the money started to slide where the revenue from a magazine was more coming from the ad sales than it was from the copies sold. So now, if I'm making most of my money from ad sales, I have to make sure the advertisers are happy.
Right.
How do I do that? I make sure your models are on the cover. I make sure your models are shown in the magazine. I make sure some of your staff are shown in the magazine. And in time, you are going to just, you know what? They put Evan Centopani on the cover, I'll sign for a year. They put PJ Braun on the cover, Blackstone will sign. And so now you see models that aren't the best maybe model in the world that fit on that cover. And you can't understand why did they choose that model. It's almost always because of an ad deal that was done. And so the publisher now leverages the cover as a spot to close a one-year deal or a large ad deal. Gotcha. And now the new trend that you see is the bottles on the front of the cover. Used to be a time when you would see that. Muscle Fitness would do that once in a while. It started. Then it became every issue. You'd see they call it a product spotlight. They have a name for it. It sounds really professional, but it's actually just bottle paste on the bottle. Like something like a product trigger or some kind of name like that in the media kits. So that becomes a source of revenue. So now you compromise the editorial because you have to get the costs. You have to sell pages for less and less and less. And now you have to have cheaper and cheaper writers, which means you need to have less, you'll have less quality writers. Right. And the writers who are used to getting 50 cents a word or $1 a word will say, I'm not doing it for 30 cents a word. And they think that they don't realize that you just got grinded or you just lost this big advertiser and you're just trying to get the issue out. Yeah. So for us, we had 3 issues in a row where it cost us more money to put the magazine out than we actually made. And so every issue, I could have done Muscle Insider for another year, but I just would have been taking from consulting money and I would have been dumping it in to keep on printing more and more because I want to save face. Yeah. And as a dad now and a family-run business, I just didn't need the continuous rejection. Like my wife was doing all the ad sales. It's disheartening, you know, and I wasn't willing to lie about my print run and tell people I was printing 100,000 copies because I wasn't. You know, I wasn't willing to continually, like, at what point do I put such and such on the cover who doesn't belong on the cover, you know? And I wasn't willing to put bottles on the front cover, you know? So anyways, so the writing quality has decreased overall. Bodybuilding.com has been forced to reduce the cost because they've been sold a couple times over the years. Yeah. And so, and now you have a whole crop of people who want to be beyond a trainer. They want to be, you know, they want to be more famous because maybe if they get more publicity in their online presence, a larger social media following, they can get more personal training clients. And, you know, I'll ask you for a second, Robert. You're a scientific writer. Companies pay you to do certain scientific pieces. It could be a sales sheet. It could be a product information page. Yeah. If Men's Health called you right now and said, we'd like you to write a thing on the 5 ingredients you could do to have more energy, wouldn't you do it for free?
They need to contact me because I'm his manager.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's grown up reading Men's Health. I've read it. That was one of the first things, my exposure to, you know, fitness stuff outside of my martial arts background. Yeah, absolutely. Or I would probably do it at a discount. I don't know, maybe not free, but I mean, I probably would. I mean, yeah, if I could get my name on there, yeah, sure, why not? Although I technically, I mean, yes, I think for the exposure, but my opinion and like the respect I used to have for Men's Health has gone down the toilet just because of like the quality of content they're putting out now is dog shit. And like, in my opinion, like some of their fitness, like their workout, their nutrition, some of the supplement articles I've seen written, it's just garbage. So now it's like, you know, I mean, I've been published on Cellucor's website, bodybuilding.com, and a few other places, like doing either workout or nutrition stuff in addition to supplements. Yep. And that's been great, but I almost wonder, it's like, I don't think it carries the weight that it used to because there is so much content out there now. There's so many avenues. That being said, that'd be a nice little notch to put on my belt. Say, hey, I got published on menshealth.com. So,
like, if you talk to, these are all brands, and if you talk to your parents or you're at a party with your relatives, And they say, hey, what do you do? And you say, oh, I do this podcast, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, you know what? I actually did a piece you might be familiar with. It was actually Men's Health. Are you kidding me? You wrote for Men's Health?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I had Cosmo actually contact me as well, and they asked about the use of soy protein in women. Now all of a sudden there's a status to it. So Bodybuilding.com doesn't have the status it used to have because people are becoming their own content generators, you know, and you have to sift through a lot of the stuff, but you have to have a mechanism where you can monetize the fame. So, you know, if we're doing this, the four of us obviously have different things we make our money from. We're not making money this Saturday doing this, but if it's, you know, if it's Prometeus and you're doing this and all of the brands around the world see that you're here and their employer sees that you do this stuff just for for fun, you're learning, you're getting your face out there, and it's the how do you keep your name top of mind, which maybe keeps you, you know, relevant to a lot of different things that you could monetize in other ways.
Right.
I talked to RX Muscles, Dave Palumbo. I went to his studio and I said to him, you have phenomenal traffic, but you have terrible advertising sales. You have no ads sold. No. Like if I had this kind of traffic, I could sell this all day long, you know, because I did the metrics and it was incredible. And he goes, yeah, I know. And then I said, you know what your problem is? Your ad sales guy walks around the Olympia wearing a Species t-shirt. I go, what supplement company would ever want to talk to the ad sales guy from RX Muscle who's wearing a Species Nutrition t-shirt? Yeah. And Dave Palumbo goes, I know. He goes, I just hate doing that stuff. And I go, you know, like, because when I would go to the Olympia or the Arnold's all the time, people say, hey, what did you think about the show, man? Big Ramy winning. I didn't see it. What do you mean you didn't see it? You're at the Olympia. No, I wasn't at the show. I was in Las Vegas, or I was in, you know, wherever it'd be in Columbus, Ohio. But I was stuck. I was meeting with Cellucor. I was meeting with Optimum, meeting with BSN, meeting with Isopure. Then from there, I met with Redcon, hoping their Canadian distributor can get me in with them. I got the meeting with Dymatize after that. Dinner is going to be with Rival Us. And I don't see any of the stuff I want to see. And then people say, hey, how was it? It must be nice. You know, well, I sat in a coffee shop with a guy who used to work for Boston Pizza, and he doesn't follow bodybuilding. So we're not talking about, you know, is Kai going to do it? Or, you know, so my Olympia experience was sitting in boardrooms with executives that aren't in tank tops, you know, so it's a different experience. But anyway, so to your point, the quality of the editorial has decreased for sure. I think that also, though, the consumer doesn't expect everything to be as professional as they used to. Like right now, we're doing what we're doing. This is my house. This is my door. But I kind of feel it's more raw and more authentic this way because it's more, and it's live, so I can't just read a script.
Exactly.
Are smart now, and they want some of that. Anyway, there's my ramble again. Sorry.
No, all good information. Quick question for Robbie before we get back into it. Can Zandandita order the calendar, Robbie?
Sure, I'll send it to me free and signed. Actually, very interesting what you said about RX Muscle and Dave Palumbo, and I actually agree 100%. We advertised with Dave 2 or 3 times, and I consider Dave a friend, and we always had a good relationship. But truth is that I think, I mean, I'm not gonna throw Dave under the bus here as so much as probably like no, I'll be nice. As a lot of people probably in the industry, because the thing is that I think when you're charging somebody to advertise for a product or a service or whatnot, at the end of the day, we're paying you money to make money. That's, you know, it's very, very simple. You don't have to be a genius about it. If I'm spending $50, I expect to get at least those $50 back, the very, very minimum, and get the necessary exposure. I would prefer to get $100 back, and I don't think that it's, you know, it's too much to ask. And, you know, obviously, you know, I'm doing my research, and if I see that you have the exposure and you have the traffic and whatnot, yes, I want to advertise with you. The problem is that, and that's, nobody wants to advertise, at least I don't want to anymore, because it's all about, obviously, species nutrition on RX Muscle, and that's, I think, where, the certain platforms, you have to reevaluate where you're going wrong and kind of restructure your business. We spoke about Apollon Gym and Apollon Nutrition, and it's right. Apollon Nutrition started as part of Apollon Gym. Yep. And, because the intention was just to sell at the gym. And funny thing is, a funny story is, we were selling Dave Palumbo's products. We were selling Species Nutrition. In fact, we were the first gym to sell Species Nutrition when Dave started the business. And but the prices kept going up and up and up and up and up constantly, and I'm not blaming Dave for it, because I know how the market fluctuates and stuff. So I had an opportunity to start buying smaller quantities just for the gym, and we figured out Apollon is a hardcore gym. We would sell pre-workout that would be a badass pre-workout, and because we make a lot of shakes, we kind of known in the area for protein shakes. We will sell protein shakes at the gym. So there was never an idea to go outside Apollon Gym, but just to sell at the gym. Once we started selling outside the gym and the company started kind of like branching out, and Apollon Nutrition became way more powerful than Apollon Gym, because Apollon Gym, even though it's very well known, it's still a local gym. It doesn't matter how much you like it or you heard about it. You're not going to travel from Canada to train at Apollon. You're not going to buy a membership unless you come for a visit, and then maybe you'll buy a daily pass. So clearly we cannot make money off of you. So once Apollon Nutrition's kind of started to be its own company, even lately, we started doing videos out of different gyms, and we started kind of like branching out and separating. Listen, Apollon Nutrition and Apollon Gym, owned by the same owners. They share the same name, but they're completely different businesses. And I think that's very important. And I think this is where Dave maybe failed in terms of RX Muscle and Species. Yes, you own both brands, but the thing is, if I'm to advertise with RX Muscle, I cannot really push. I don't want to be seen or competing against Species. We have Universal Nutrition that is very, very close, like 5 or 10 minute drive from Apollon Gym. And they would come and actually film, their videos and their commercials and stuff like that. And we would never charge them money. We never charged anyone to film commercials at the gym, because we feel it still kind of gives us an exposure. Yeah. But in terms of Apollon Nutrition products and whatnot that are at the gym, we would automatically take them down and make sure they're not visible, just a sign of respect, and to make sure that this is about Universal Nutrition. And I think that this, even though they don't pay us, they just come to film it. So I think that that's, if we are approaching a publishing company or, any company that we want to advertise with, and I'm not talking about Apollon, I'm talking about in general, I think as long as the companies, it's like you said, you're a consultant, but you also run Muscle Insider, and you have to kind of separate the two, because those are two different businesses that you're running, even though you can actually, talk about both of them because they're not really competing. But what I'm saying is that Muscle Development also got in touch with us, and they offered us to advertise with them. But all they did was, well, here's the price we are giving you, and that's a fixed price. Basically, they didn't say it. They were actually very polite, but that was basically take it or leave it. Okay, we're paying you $1,000 or $2,000. Obviously you're trying to sell and you're saying, oh, we're giving you a deal. Yes, you are giving us a deal, but it's the money that we want to bring back. And we want to make sure that you're going to help us with that, and not just advertise and oh, okay, you know what, you're paying for advertising and that's about it. The same goes with sponsored athletes. You want sponsorship. Yeah, what are you going to give me? I want $10,000 a month. That is great. How are we going to get that money back? And I think this is where all the platforms and publishing houses and, and those advertising marketing companies, they fail to understand. You want to make a sale. So do we. We're paying you in order to increase our sales. And I think that that's the problem, because somebody like RX Muscle, like Dave Palumbo, he could probably make a killing. He has thousands and thousands and thousands of views and huge traffic. But at the end of the day, I think that he is not maximizing, his potential.
Yes. You've touched on some really key things here. Where to start on that? Every supplement company owner I've consulted for, they have to understand that the marketing is really to put the mind towards, and the promotion is to make it come off the shelf. Okay,
Yes.
so if I were to do a deal, I lower the price down. If you said to me, okay, I have $50,000 that I want to invest, and I want to get $100,000 in sales, you know what I would tell you? Is hire a inside salesperson in international who actually has connections in the Middle East and in China and in South America and Mexico. And if you were to get your product into Mexico, you're going to get far more than $100,000 for that $50,000 person, because they have friendships. And I hate using the word relationships now because it's overused. They have friendships. So what would it be worth for me to get into Russia? It'd be worth a ton. It'd be worth me spending $100,000 to get someone to get me into Russia. So if I have to pay an international salesperson for a year just to crack that market, once you're in, you then pay your registrations, you do your trademarks. It's a bridge. And why are companies like Dymatize, Universal, Mutant, MuscleTech, why are they so valuable? Is because they have global distribution. They have bridges all over the world. And that's, look at all the stuff they went through to get to that point. But that's really the goal. And in the US, it's a ferocious market. The barrier to entry is low. Now that you saw Amazon changing the rules in terms of what they require for you to be on the site and the testing, the C of A's that are required. And in Europe, and obviously, Lukasz, you can touch on this, but the American currency is so strong, it's killing the American brand's ability to compete in Europe. And so it really comes down to, am I willing to invest in marketing and know full well going into it that I might not see the dollars come back to me right now? I might see them in the future. And at that point, you have to balance between brand building and sales. And those are two different goals. And sometimes what I find is supplement company owners who used to be salespeople, they want to hear, show me the amount of sales I'm going to get if I spend this. If I get people who are marketers in the marketing department, they get it. They realize, okay, if I don't have a good social media following and I don't have good labels and I don't have good content, I can't get an international distributor to even meet with me. So I have to have that content and that page and that look here to front. And we see this at the Olympia. Lukasz, you'll say this is 100% fact. Why is it that you see these international companies displaying in the US at the Olympia with no distribution in the US? How did SciTech, before they were distributed in the United States, why did they have a booth? Why did there's so many companies that you see these Yamamoto Nutrition in the Olympia in Vegas? No distribution in the US at the time. It's because the buyers around the world would go to the Olympia, they'd walk the floor, and they would see it and they get tricked. They see it and they go, oh my God, this must be a huge brand. They come once a year to North America to see what's going on. I actually know of one company, and this is a funny story. Actually, I'll say it, Nutribolics. One of the things that they would do is they would have a booth at the Olympia. They would hire a UFC fighter to do an appearance. There'd be a crazy amount of chaos at the booth. They'd make sure to show each buyer what's going on. Come on by our booth. Come on by our booth. Come on by our booth. They had no distribution. They had very little distribution in the US at the time. But if I just get one person from Egypt to pick up the line, or from India to pick up the line because of what they saw, or Mexico, it's worth way more than that cost of that appearance. And so, anyway, I know I rambled again, but what you're asking, Palumbo, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Tell me that.
I totally agree with your points. Plus, I think that the better example for the event would be FIBO, because FIBO is just massive, and in my opinion, is the biggest show in the entire world when it comes to our industry and the supplements, you know. And you can see like all different brands from all around the world, you know, not only from like US and Europe, but also from India nowadays, China as well. It's expanding every year, and you can only like two big holes are with like just supplements, and the rest are with like equipment, you know, clothing, apparel, and you know, all different kinds of stuff, you know. So yeah, I totally agree with you, you know. But as far as like, you know, US brands and like they're like coming to Europe, the thing is that, you know, with US brands, you know, okay, they look appealing, but it was back in the days, you know. The currency changed a lot, you know, plus, you know, the demand of, you know, the European market also changed a lot. And the last thing that I want to touch is that you got so many local brands nowadays in Europe, man. It's insane. Just in Poland, you got so many brands. Every retailer nowadays has its own brand. So the competition is super high, you know, and, you know, they're like beating on prices on every ingredient. So even now, you know, in Europe, you can manufacture all different stuff, and it's like twice or even 3 times cheaper than in US. So for example, like, you know, importing protein or like other ingredients from US makes no sense nowadays, you know. That's why you can see like so many US brands coming to Europe and producing all their products, you know, and selling through other distribution channels and et cetera, you know.
Yeah, that's another big trend that I have seen is the manufacturing of product in Europe for Europe. And that's another trend we're going to see in Australia because the regs of importing are so strict. Manufacturing in Australia for Australia is going to be the only option. And in Canada, you're seeing it. Manufacturing in Canada is great because now you have stabilized currency. You can do consistent pricing for the retailer, and you now have it over the border. So you don't actually have to worry about clearing customs because you've already cleared it. And generally, the contract manufacturers in Canada are more familiar with the Health Canada laws because they're regulated by Health Canada and inspected. So they can walk you through some of the things. And I've had contract manufacturers say, hey, these are the things Health Canada told us that they're going to be watching over the next 3 months. So you get tipped off. Whereas a US manufacturer is making for the US where it's a lot more free, and they're not versed as well as the Canadian manufacturers. But yeah, it's an interesting game. I saw it at FIBO last year. And another thing that's interesting is in Europe, the whole style is massive booths. And if you don't have a massive booth, then the distributor from Portugal or distributor from Sweden doesn't think you're a player. And so there's no one in the booth. It's dead, but that's your showroom. In the United States, it's chaos, and you don't have to have a big booth. So the trend that I saw going was the smaller booths. You have 20-foot booths, not 80-foot booths. And now it was actually more diversification. But yet people in the industry said, oh my God, the trade shows are dying because there's smaller booths. Well, the trend is now I have to diversify my spend. And I have to, if I can, instead of doing a $100,000 booth, I can do a $50,000 booth. And if I can sell $50,000 in product and I spend $50,000, then it's closer to a break even. But I know of companies that spend $200,000 at the LA Fit Expo, and that's, you're not going to sell $200,000 worth of product to match that, So and the margins are so thin on some of those products that they're selling that it's the trade shows have had to change.
Yeah, you know what? We call it like dick measuring contest, basically. So it's like, the bigger the booth you got, the more exposure you want to have, but it doesn't work like that. I don't know if you saw our booths at the FIBO, and I think we did the right thing, we didn't go super big, but we did the small booths. It was in one area, so it was nicely displayed, and it showed all the brands that we work with and our logo as well. So, you know, back in the days, I remember we had these massive booths, but, you know, nowadays the trend is going on a different side, you know. But you still can see, like, you know, this brands such as like Trek, Olymp, you know, Maximuscle and so on, that they're like spending tons of cash on these booths, and they are like enormous, you know, but it doesn't work like that, you know.
Yeah. FIBO is a unique animal. Unless anyone has ever gone, they wouldn't understand it. You know, it's just one of those, you know, it's no big deal to sell $100,000 worth of product and clothing at the booth. That's quite common. 50,000 is quite common. If you did that at the Arnold's, people wouldn't believe it, you know, like. And whatever a thing I love about FIBO is, like, I watch people come in with suitcases, and they will fill 3 or 4 suitcases full of supplements, and it turns out that they own a pro shop somewhere, or, you know, they can sell it online. And the deals on the Sunday, the last show, you don't want to ship that stuff home.
Correct.
So you're unloading so much inventory, and these pro shop owners know this, and so they're loading up. But it's a B2B and B2C at the same time.
Yeah.
And more of a showroom and consumer show. But people go there to buy, whereas in the Arnold's, people go there to shop. They go to get free stuff. They, you know, it's very difficult to be profitable at these shows, but it's good. It's, you know, and I remember the owner of MuscleTech, the original owner, said to me one time, if you can't afford to do the Arnold, then you can't afford not to do the Arnold, you know, or the Olympia. That if you don't do it 1 year, the industry says, oh, they must be losing money, you know? And so sometimes the big companies are forced to be at these shows because they have to. And I still think there's a benefit. You're getting the cream of the crop consumer. You're getting, I mean, 100,000 plus people in Columbus. I mean, that's phenomenal. I just think that sometimes if you're a smaller company, you have to spend every dollar wisely. And I think sometimes that I've seen great success with a 10-foot booth, 20-foot booth, because sometimes just even having a small presence at the Arnold's, you get retailers locally that come by. Or you say to them, another good strategy, I've done this with companies, is said, who are your top retailers in Las Vegas? Okay, well, it's a Las Vegas discount. It's this, it's this. Okay, well, why don't we invite their store managers to come and work the booth with us? They can give out their business cards to all of their customers, and we'll pay for this, we'll pay for that, we'll get them a hotel. And so it becomes a B2B ass kiss. They see your pitch of how you sell a supplement there. But what they do beforehand is they tell every customer, hey, you might want to see me, drop by the Diamantized booth. I'll be down there on Saturday, Sunday. It's sort of a bragging right for them. And now you're there, and all of a sudden their consumers are showing up to see them because they're in Las Vegas, they're local, they wanted to go see their friend and support them. Now you can develop a connection with them, ask them, hey, are you on social media? What's your handle? Let me follow you. Why don't you guys do a selfie here with this athlete? And now all of a sudden you've had a chance to use your retailer to introduce you to a consumer and make them a fan of your brand and develop a connection in some way with between the retailer, and then you load their customer up, and both of them, you're making the retailer look good, and you're also making the customer realize he was special by coming over to the booth, and you had nothing but sample packs. So you can kind of do that in a 20-foot booth and make it a B2B benefit as well as a B2C. But the dick measuring contest always seems to happen at the bigger you get, the bigger the booth you get, and then it becomes not profitable, as profitable as it used to be when you first started doing shows.
That's interesting. Scott, you touched up on a few companies. You mentioned Universal Nutrition. Maybe that's a bad example. Optimum Nutrition, Dymatize, and those like big, huge MuscleTech, huge brands. And, you know, Apollon is a smaller company, a lot smaller company, but we kind of like growing with the retailers and, you know, especially direct sales and whatnot. But I wanted actually your perspective on something, you know, considering you've been in the industry for such a long time and you've seen it all. Quite often I hear stuff like MuscleTech is shit. They know where to be found. Optimum Nutrition is shit. They know where to be found. And I mean, I think it's referred to the fact that smaller retailers don't really carry those products. So it's assumed or presumed that those companies are not doing well. But then when you look on a broader spectrum, like you go to Europe and MuscleTech, Universal, Optimum Nutrition are absolutely killing it. They everywhere. And then you go to Walmart and Costco, and obviously you see those companies that you won't find in the smaller retail stores. Again, Muscle Farm and all those like bigger companies. And you come to realize, wait, these guys are not really doing badly. They're probably doing very well. But then also you won't really find them on Price Plow. You won't really find them on Fitness Informant. You won't really find them on Fitness Deal News. They don't send their products to be reviewed and whatnot. So, you know, we like probably like our, let's call it different side of the industry, don't really hear about them. We're not even familiar too much with the products. Here and there, they will pop up on Stacked. But that's about it. Like I've seen like I think MuscleTech I've seen on Stacked recently. Other than that, I would assume that the company is dead until I travel to Europe, until I go into larger retailer stores like Costco and Walmart and all those. Why would you say that we don't see them aggressively pursuing retailing, the small retail stores, or maybe they're not interested, or the retail stores are not interested in them? But it seems like there are two sides of this. It's almost like you have Kia, a cheaper economy car, and then you have, you know, Ferrari that is a completely different. They both cars, they both will get you to a final destination, but they are completely different markets. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit because the price difference between Kia and Ferrari is pretty substantial, you know, and Protein is not really that substantial a price, $5-10 at the most. But what is your opinion on that?
Excellent questions. With those three companies, okay, the four largest companies in the industry are Iovate, Dymatize, NBTY, which is Body Fortress, and Optimum, Glanbia. Those four are the largest movers of supplements in the United States. Over in the Hut Group in Europe with obviously MyProtein.
Yep.
And then you have beyond that Olymp, and you have there's another brand. It's just so not here. Biotech USA.
Biotech USA. Mm-hmm. From Hungary.
And Grenade and Maxi Muscle. Those are the largest players in the world. So the moment that you get to that size, you want the specialty channel to continue to support you, but the specialty channel is broken right now, really badly. And the specialty channel partners just cannot turn away the urge, cannot resist the urge to stop taking in new products continuously that have higher margins, that maybe aren't paying for the heavy metal testing or the banned substance testing, like whatever the testing is. And I'm not, believe me, I'm not somebody, I've used steroids in my life. I've used, you know, all kinds of the different stimulants on the market. But the independent channel is in a different situation that way. They're suffering. So because they won't just keep the line to the largest brands in the store, and you can blame the retailer or you can blame the brand. But I can tell you from being on the other side of it and talking to these big companies, they don't get the support. They get an independent channel pushes them onto a new product all the time. So the consumer goes there and they're looking for Quest bars, and all of a sudden they end up getting pushed onto something that they didn't want. And you remember Europa tried the whole bricks and mortar group of supplement lines, like I think it was Kodiak, which was specifically only bricks and mortar store product line. Basically, they cannot get enough support at the retail level to make the sales up that would then support the advertising enough to actually continue to be exclusive to the specialty channel. They can't produce a product at that price with that margin and actually still do all of the things you need to do to be free of getting sued from class action lawyers, the quality control that's needed, the lack of amino acid spike, all these different things. So you have to distribute into these other channels. The other problem has become that, like, say, a GNC franchise system, you can't get all the franchisees to push the same stuff. So now you have to continually work where each franchisee is almost independent. And then you want to get Vitamin Shop on board, Vitamin World on board, you want to have Amazon on board. Then you have the resellers. Then you have the retail stores that are front for stores, but are actually Amazon resellers behind the scenes under different names that are just floating down the price point. Then another thing that a lot of distributors are actually selling on Amazon. They don't tell you they're doing it, but when you trace it back, you will see. And there's some that, if I told you about them, that you'd shake your head, but there's some online retailers who are some of the biggest Amazon sellers, but not under their own name. And so so what happens is the top companies need to do runs that are, say, 50,000 bottles at a time to get this particular price point. And they need to have this amount of support from the independent channel. But if the foot traffic isn't going into the stores or the gyms because the gyms are closed under COVID, or because the gyms channel, the supplements consumer goes to Walmart, and while they're there buying their diapers and their Band-Aids and their food, they happen to see, you can see Total War from Redcon 1's Total War is in Walmart. So while I'm here, I got my shopping cart. I'm here to spend mentally $200. I'm not thinking about price. I throw a box of bars in. Now I leave that store, and I almost feel like in some ways it's a more fair fight in mass market because there's no clerk to interfere. Mm-hmm. And at GNC, we all know you walk in there, you came in there and you wanted to buy, say, GAC 3D. And as you get in there, they say, oh yeah, how are you for energy? Well, I've got force factor. And all of a sudden that goes on the table. And now the consumer didn't walk out with what they actually walked in with. And so now the mass market companies need to support the mass market retailers for survival because they cannot get the independent channel to cooperate in pushing the product. Mm-hmm. And so now they have to change in which the way they market. You're now seeing a trend of the on-the-go nutrition. Optimum Nutrition has become a major drink and on-the-go nutrition snack player. Yeah. If you go back 5 years, they weren't. They had some of the stuff. Amino Energy, I think, had just gone to a PET, mm-hmm. but they weren't really known as an energy drink company. Nutrabolt with Cellucor C4-RTD, they become mm-hmm. now, you see it all the time going into these places. With Redcon going in there and having their RTD with Total War RTD, you're now seeing this in like Nevada Bob's, and you're seeing this in these different sporting stores. And so some would say, well, that's going to be bad because now all of a sudden I can buy Redcon in a sports store. Mm-hmm. But if they're getting people who are used to drinking Gatorade that are now drinking something that has caffeine, Yohimbe, or some of these other ingredients in it, maybe they might go home, Google it, and then see, hey, I can get a powder version of this thing too. It seems to have even more strength, but I really want to take a nootropic because I hear these things make you think more. It kind of gets a whole new consumer there. Mm-hmm. But in my experience, the specialty channel is where you incubate. That's where you build your core audience. And shows like your show is for the supplement fanatics. What I call it, your show is you are an influencer of the influencers. So mm-hmm. the influencers tune in here. So I don't care. I looked at your views, and I'm very impressed by it because if it's 453 views and it's 453 people like the four of us, that's who I want to reach. Yeah. And I remember Jack Owak saying to me, the owner, Jack Owak of
BPX.
I helped him launch the Bang energy drink when that first launched. And he said to me, yeah, I did the Bang when it was in the screw top.
Yeah.
I was there for that. I also worked on Redline Princess, Meltdown RTD. I've worked with 40 companies now, well, close to 40. So when that happened, he said to me, 20% of the supplement consumers consume 80% of the supplements. And I focus on those 20%. Mm-hmm. And that's not the average person. And that's the people who are fanatic about their pre-workouts. They're taking this, they're taking their shakes, they're weighing their meals. That's your cream of your crop supplement consumer. That to me is the person using Hooligan. That's the person who's using maybe some of the inspired products. You know, some of the stuff that I've seen, Berserk, or some of these different ingredients, a chainsaw, you know, Insane Labs, some of these different guys have reached the cream of the crop consumer. If you have a triangle, that top, to me, is the golden consumer. They are the influencer who influences a group below them, which then when they get on board, they influence the people below that. But I always want, as a supplement company into performance, I want to reach the top, the person who knows exactly what they're taking, why they're taking it, when they're taking it. And to me, that's worth way more. If I only had 1,000 people that were using my product who know why, you know, Hooligan is the way it was formulated, the way it was, that's what I want. I want my tribe to have other people just as religious about my tribe as me. Then what I want to do is I want to go and find other religions nearby. Maybe it's, I hate to use that, but that's the best way to, if I have a tribe, I want to have a bigger tribe, but I don't just want people who are fringe. I want people who are drinking the Kool-Aid 5-6 times a day who love this brand. So how do I do that? On Instagram, I start to find brands close to me that are similar to me. So maybe if it's Insane Labs is very similar to Apollon, what I want to do is start following their diehard fan.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I was gonna say, man, like the form, like that. Robbie owns Apollon. I mean, like saying Insane Labs is on the same level as Apollon, man. That's like just like digging a screwdriver into my heart or something. It's like their formulas are dog shit.
I'm sorry, I'm just using it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just it was funny.
We're just joking. That's all.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, if I'm Optimum Nutrition and I see Dymatize as my rival, what I want to do is I want to look on the comments on Instagram and see who the most passionate fans are of that particular product.
Right.
I want to follow them, and then I want to start liking their posts and genuinely commenting. Not saying, if you like their protein, you wait till you try mine. Like that's not going to work. What I do is I show them some love, and now they have a picture of their car, and I just say, you know, cool ride. Now, all of a sudden, they see, wow, wait a second, someone from Optimum actually commented on my post? I feel special. I feel like I'm not getting any love from this company. Body Fortress hasn't even done anything to me. And I'm not getting anything, but they're just giving. And what I find is it's like a whisper in the night to some of the people who are over at the other campfire and say, you want to come on over here, you're going to really like it. When they get there, they see all this positive love that they get. So I just took my direct competitor, their best fans, and move them over slowly. And now when they keep on serving this content, I DM them and say, hey, great leg workout. Man, that I don't then follow it with, check out this one. You know, I basically just try to do that. And I think that you see this with the affiliate programs. You see a company go from Nutrex over to Inspired, or go over to you know, whoever the company is that has their affiliate program. So the goal is to make my tribe bigger, but loyal and really enthusiastic. And that's where I've seen Ghost do a phenomenal job. I've seen DLB. Look at DLB's crowd. Look at Rich Piana's crowd. I'm not a 5%er. Yeah. But when you walk by that booth and you see everybody there looks very similar, covered in tats, they almost look like gang members. They've got some muscle. They're like they power lift or they body build. They have this look. There's the 5% of the room, all at the 5% booth. Now I go to DLB, just as long of a lineup, but I see the nose piercings. I see they almost look like skateboarders who are trying to work out a little bit, but there's a 2-hour lineup of them over there. Now, I then see these different tribes that they want to say, that's me. I'm the Redcon guy. I'm like, I hear it about PJ, and they become part of that group. Yeah. So I think for Apollon, I would look at who are my direct, and I always ask companies when I'm working for them, I say, who are your top 5 competitors? And when they say to me, everybody, now I know they don't know their competition. And that's a big mistake in boxing. That's a big mistake in anything in media. Know exactly who your competition is. And the one thing I'll say to you I've learned over my career is a marketer doesn't care if he copies, because if you can take someone's idea, and let's say that every human has one original thought, if I can take your idea and find a way, I find the holes in your idea, and I can make your idea even better, let's face it, you're not the first company to ever sell a pre-workout, and you won't be the last.
Right.
And so everybody who has a new pre-workout, everyone wants to know, well, what's the new Ghost version 2 of Legend? As soon as that goes up, then you're going to see the newest pre-workouts coming out will start with that formula, or they'll go with Dynasty from C4. They'll just go with whatever the current is, and they'll just add, copy, paste, and then add a few other ingredients to it. And the bar just gets risen higher. I guess you could say that. So anyways, the biggest companies in the industry, they are selling a lot of sports nutrition to a lot of different consumers. They're selling globally in a lot of places. And the big mistake that when I left MuscleTech, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was I was used to doing, you know, $300 million company. I was used to a marketing strategy that was TV, 600 pages of print. We had Jay Cutler. I was there to negotiate his contract. And we had the money we had at one point 150 athletes under contract. So with 150 athletes and with distribution where Sportica was pushing the heck out of it, with all of this stuff working for you, I got to be an inefficient marketer because I was used to having everything at my disposal. And now I had to go and work, and they said, okay, you have one page for that product in Flex. And I was like, one page? I'm used to having literally 50 pages, like 40, 30, you know. And so I got, I had to learn how to get nimble and work with a $10 million company, and what did they need to do? And so right away it was like, okay, well, let's get an international salesperson here so we can get international distribution. That's a better investment for us. Let's get a, let's make our packaging look better. And one of the things that I think that you've seen in the industry change that is smart to change is now the packaging has gotten better. If you go and look through, go look and Google some of the old packaging from some of the companies and you see it all online. It's amazing how far packaging has come. And now you see companies see Ghost and they see that, you know, graffiti cartoon look. And there's so many of these offshoot companies that come out that have started with customized labels that are handwritten. And they already now, or they have shrink sleeves, or they have, you know, it's not clumping because they make their product at the same other company that makes it. And they know that they can use 3 or 4 desiccant packs inside it to help prevent the clumping, or, you know, and so over time, the game has to step up on your packaging, because if I meet with Prometeus and I sit across from you and say, hey, look at this, you're looking at Dedicated and you're seeing that beside that and saying, this is terrible. Like this looks awful. You can't be serious to think that I'm going to take this, because I'm merchandising someone else's store, and the store has to look like it has good things. And it just goes down the pipeline that way. So now everybody has to have good packaging. Everyone has to have transparent labeling in terms of no proprietary blends. Everybody has to have a knowledge of the regulatory landscape to know that this is what will or will not be able to be sold, or this is what will or will not shouldn't be in your formula because it's going to be banned in the next 3 months. Instagram is standard. If you're not on there and you're not doing really well, providing having someone full. I've had companies say to me, I don't want to hire a full-time social media person. And it's like, then you shouldn't, you know, I hope you have insurance, because you have to have certain things now in the supplement industry. Yeah. And if you don't have that, or you're not capturing emails, like, so anyways, I'm sorry, that's another ramble of mine. I apologize.
No,
it's actually, Rob, you should be writing down these little notes so you can go poach customers for Apollon.
I feel like I should be paying you for this, because this is absolutely amazing. No, it's number one, it's very, very interesting information. Number two, I mean, it's fascinating. I'll be honest, I learned a lot. And you know what? Actually, that comes to, because you made a comparison between the smaller brands, so-called hard-hitting brands like Apollon, Inspired, Berserk, and somebody, actually a few times, I remember people were telling me, and you know, Apollon's been around around 5 years or something like that, and you know, we had constant year-to-year growth. So obviously, you know, I'm happy about it. Needless to say, it's a fact, we're still a small company, and compared to those giants, we are tiny. But I don't, you know, I think that probably, you know, Inspired, Apollon, and all those companies that more like, you know, fully transparent, hard hitting, you know, what you said, that, you know, that we target, or we appeal more to people that do understand supplements, people that do listen to Robert and they learn from him and stuff like that. That's our market, so to speak. Athletes, people that actually pay attention to ingredients and the dosages and stuff like that. However, I remember I was told a couple of times, and I found it intriguing. If Apollon came up with something a little bit softer, quote unquote, and to appeal to the mass market, you would be better off. And I'll admit, obviously, the thought crossed my mind, because number one, it would be a lot cheaper to manufacture. Jacking up the pre-workout into 2025 scoop, obviously it's very expensive. And those people that will try Hooligan or Assassin, they will say, oh, your products are expensive. Those are the not knowledgeable crowd. Those are the mainstream that the first thing that they will notice, oh, holy shit, the price is high, or this pre-workout doesn't taste good. And you have to explain to them, what, 1,000 milligram of lion's mane or 600 milligram of ASO6 is not really easy to flavor. but that's not our market, so to speak, but they will still try. So, they will say, like, I want a better tasting product, or I want, a softer product, not as hard hitting, even though we do have a non-stim pre-workout. But my point is that I felt, even though like maybe we should trigger that and release something softer, but my fear was, and again, I don't claim to be an expert. I still think that I'm learning. I'm constantly learning from Robert. I'm constantly like picking Lukasz's brain, because he's been in the industry a lot longer than I have. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm still learning. But I felt like if we are to release something softer, more mainstream look in terms of like ingredients and cheaper, I think that our diehard followers and those that are kind of like, like our products, I think they would crucify us. I think that we potentially, and again, I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right. I feel like it would be almost like backstabbing our core followers and saying, you know what, like we're trying to break away, even though it worked for Radcon. They started off on a little bit kind of a hardcore, but they definitely got a lot softer and, they succeeded. So who can argue with success? It's just, I still think that Apollon is different, Inspired is different. And I feel if we would do something like a proprietary blend product, or we would do something, with 100 milligram of caffeine, or, 2000 milligram of citrulline or something like that, I think that, and, we closely affiliated also with Robert, who always gives us, his seal of approval, which I value, and, our customers value too. Even though it's a smaller percentage than a lot smaller than Optimum Nutrition or what those companies have, I feel like we probably would cause more harm to the company, to the core of its company. And I wanted your perspective. What do you think about, companies like, like Apollon doing something and venturing into other areas? Do you think it would be beneficial, or do you think, in your opinion, you should stay in your own lane and do what works?
It all starts with the first question is, who is your target market? And if you know that, you work backwards. Every marketer, every consulting gig I ever did, that's the very first question I ask. And I judge the person's knowledge by their answer.
Okay.
And if they don't know who their target market is, then how do they know? Because everything else, product, price, place, and promotion, works backwards from target market. That's the number one thing. So if I want to reach people like you, if you didn't own your own supplement company, if I wanted to reach you, I got to know, do you have a gym membership? Do you not? How many days a week do you train? How long have you been taking supplements for? What your knowledge of supplements are, because you go through a grade. If you look at what you bought when you first started, most people buy the scams when they first start, because they buy into the sizzle, not the steak. Yep. They buy into the hype. I remember a product. Actually, I'm not even going to give the example because I know you'll guess it. But anyways, so if I know that I want to reach the cream of the crop, top stem junkies, and I listen to your podcast, you guys are really into the nootropics, really into the stems. Is it TJ? Is that the gentleman who was going to be on the show? Yeah. I watched his videos this morning, and he's got some wicked reviews. I really like his reviews; they're fucking awesome. I haven't seen his YouTube channel in the past, but he breaks down the ingredients, and it's truly the hardest core stuff that is in those stores. There were brands I didn't even like. One was a chemical pre-workout that was not even approved for use, and it discloses that it's not even supposed to be for human use, it's supposed to be for research purposes. That makes me want to try it, but I'm not the average guy, right? So you know that that's your target market. Now you don't do that. You don't sell it. You don't change that because there's more people like your current tribe out there. It's a matter of how do I get more of them? And if you think you've got them all, you haven't. And so now you slowly make your plan of who are the 5 other ones you want to take from. Now, they might be smaller guys that are just as edgy as you. They might be, you're in Jersey, so they're probably LA based, or they're in Texas, or there's some that are coming all over in Florida, there's quite a bit. You slowly find these people, and then you now stick to your roots. On your side, probably international, there's probably going to be restrictions on what you can do because of the stems that you have, etc. But if there's some product you can get out there, maybe it's your EAA, maybe it's something without the hard stems. One of the things I learned from SAN, I did a tour with them for a bit, is in order to break into the overseas market with commodities, they wanted to get into these places. They got their own encapsulation machine. So then they just made, say, caffeine pills or, say, glutamine pills. And now they could get the SAN brand in these weird markets that just wanted a commodity that was able to be cleared through customs. So now it gets into, say, Thailand. And now you have your brand is officially in Thailand. So behind that now comes your BCA, that the next one you do. Or if you could break into the China market. Like, you have no idea. Like, it's so big, it's insane. But it's very, very hard to get in. But if you can get in with a very compliant product, like one of the things they don't want is, like if you sell BCAs, they don't want anything else in it. You can't have any amplifiers. You can't have any bioperin. You can't have anything in there that's estrogen or anything extra. And you have to put soy, like a lecithin inside it. So, okay, you wouldn't put soy in the United States, but you would put soy in your BCA to get yourself clearing customs. Or one of the things that's interesting is they don't allow beta alanine to be used as a energy driver, but you can use it as a flavoring substance. So now you just label it as a flavoring agent that's there. Weird. But if you could just get the brand into those markets, the market is so big now, and that's where the advantage with international companies come from, because you're sending a container to these foreign markets and you're not paying any marketing locally within those places. And now you reinvest that into your Instagram account, but you now have an international salesperson to help you. And now you can do more work. And now you can slowly diversify the amount of products you can come out with and the amount of money you can spend on your direct-to-consumer business. And you can slowly build that, ratcheting both. But the magic is really independent channel for you, the gym channel perhaps for you within all across the US, overseas market, phenomenal, but not necessarily. I mean, 70 to 80% of international sales are gainers and protein. So now you come to another thing that you'll have to make the decision on. It's very, very difficult to compete on price, especially in Europe, when the European brands, a lot of them, are selling amino spiked protein. And they're selling a low-grade concentrate, like a concentrate 60, and they're putting glycine and taurine in it. And now the cost for a 5-pounder, you can't figure out why you can't match the price the distributor needs it for. I'm not saying all. I'm just saying that there is so little. I mean, walking around, the expo last year at FIBO and seeing some of these brands, giant bags of whey, and you see the cost, you're like, how can you possibly sell an isolate in a 10-pounder for that cheap? And so you now, sometimes international, you have to change your strategy. So you may not believe in a low-cost gainer right now, but if that's what a distributor in Mexico says they want, because this is a cheaper form of food, or in India, this is a cheaper form of food, you may have to use a maltodextrin or a low-cost concentrate. You may have to get yourself into that market. You're not going to get in there for your BCA or your EAA or some of these things unless you at least have a protein powder and a gainer. So sometimes the compromises happen overseas. And what do you care? I mean, it's going into China, the big market. But if you can get $10 million in sales from China, And if your margin on that is 30 or 40%, the amount of money that that could do for your business back home in building a brand that's truly powerful is worth it at that time. I wouldn't change who you are. That is who your target market is. I think that it's in time that you have the luxury of changing who you are, a little bit of what you stand for, because remember that triangle is here. And if I can get the top of the triangle, I now get them influencing the one level below. Now I can make product because I have enough base to go back on. Mm-hmm. And where I look for is the trends of a company. So when I see it, like it seems to be trending, like you're seeing Axe and Sledge are trending quite well. You're seeing Ghost is trending. Obviously, they've done phenomenal with Anheuser-Busch and things like that. But we saw that coming. I mean, mm-hmm. Redcon, we saw that coming. But I think that, I think you have to look at just how do I get more people to use my brand of the same types of people. Like what I loved about Rich Piana's 5%, forget the formulas, forget all that stuff, is I like the fact that he decided he only wants the 5%. And you can have the 95% optimum. I'll take the 5%. And it's ingenious because I did this with Slim Quick when I knew that hydroxycut was a unisex fat burner. So I said, why don't we go after only the women? Because I knew 80% of purchases at Walmart were made by women. So if I just got 8 out of 10 customers to be a potential shopper, I can be owning this in the mind, and I can say, hey, a secret deodorant, it's made for a woman. Would you use, Speed Stick? No. If a woman has a choice between a female deodorant and a male deodorant or a unisex deodorant, she'll take a female deodorant. And if you were looking at a Centrum pill, and it's Centrum for him, Centrum for her, or Centrum unisex, you take Centrum for him, even if it's the same price. Even if it gives you that little feeling that this is more to me, then I'm proud to use something for me. And I think Apollon caters to a hardcore consumer who wants to sort of root for you, Jersey-based, and they see that this is a hardcore brand, and part of my badge is I'm hardcore because I use this, and you can't find this in GNC, you can't find this in Vitamin Shop. That's now part of the cool factor is it's hard to get. So anyway, I'm rambling again. Sorry.
No, it's good.
No, this is like we should have charged entry for like this, because this is like a whole marketing and advertising seminar right here. So I know we have we have consumers, but we also have a fair amount of brand owners that watch either on the podcast or listen to this too. So it'll be interesting to see what some of the comments I get this week once this podcast officially airs. Like, so we're recorded today, it's live, and then I pull it down and then relaunch it again on Tuesdays. Yep. While we're on the subject, all right, so we'll hit a couple of these questions that have come in the feed, and then I want to get your thoughts on something too, Scott. If a product is too high stim, do you take less than the required serving? But the caveat is you might be getting less efficacious doses of the other non-stim ingredients. What are your thoughts on that? We'll start with Scott first.
As a marketer of supplements, I'd rather have people say it's too strong than they're not sure if it works. I learned that lesson years ago. If you look back at Rip Fuel, people would take it and say, oh my God, it was too strong. Mm-hmm. I've launched other products where people said, man, like I remember one, it was called Thermal Gain by MuscleTech, and it was supposed to make you hot. Mm-hmm. And when some people said, look, I didn't sweat profusely, and I saw the ads where Johnny Jackson was on fire, sweating profusely. Yeah. If I have that as the reputation that the product is being led by, I've not seen that work well. So I'd rather be way too strong than to have people afraid to take a full dose, mm-hmm. than to have a reputation that, I don't know. I heard it was all that 1,000 megs of caffeine. I don't know, or 700. I don't know. I didn't. Because you know what, if pre-workouts are, there's in boardrooms, everyone says, I don't really like that sketched out feeling. I don't really like that being overstimulated. Sure. But the moment I say to you, hey, there's a new form of a DMHA alternative, those same people are like, hey, what is it like? What's it feel like? Yep. Bruce Neller's got one, right? What's it feel like? I haven't tried it yet, but I saw it on. And so I think that, what do you do in that case is you probably lower the dose, or you switch brands, or you create your own stack. Because
throw in an extra non-stim pump product or something like that.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah,
that's just
this question doesn't even really appear to Lukasz because nothing is too high stim for Lukasz. So, what would you do, Robbie?
You know what? It's actually, you know, there's not much to add to what Scott said because he's right on the money. High stim, I mean, the truth is, high stim can be 200 milligram of caffeine for some people, and I've seen it. You know, Lukasz takes 6 pills of our overtime, and he can probably add another 6 pills. Does it make him a freak? No, it doesn't. It makes him Lukasz, and you know what? And he can tolerate it. Good for him. I know people who can barely take 2 capsules. I don't think Lukasz is better or that person is better. It's not a competition. Everybody is different. We have different receptors. We have different genetics. We have different, you know, ways the way we react to certain stims. When you know, when somebody says too high of a stim, I don't even know what it means. You know, yeah, of course. I mean, if we're going overboard with like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 milligram of caffeine, yeah, that's probably too high. Anything under 1,000, 700, 800, 300, that depends on an individual. And you know what? Scott is absolutely 100% right. Rather than criticizing the product, or you know, or saying the product is bad or harmful or whatnot, just switch to another brand. I mean, that's the beauty about it. That's the reason why you don't see me really talking shit about, say, Cellucor C4, because I don't think it's a bad product. I just don't think it's a product for me. But there is a consumer for it. You know, there is a consumer for Total War, there is a consumer for C4, and there is a consumer for Hooligan. And everybody should stay in their own lane and do whatever works for them. If the product, you could technically, you know, cut the pre-workout in half and add maybe a little bit of a pump ingredient or whatever. But there are some people that don't want pump ingredients at all. You know, like you have CrossFit athletes and you have people that are doing, you know, strength and conditioning. They don't want citrulline in it and, you know, and get all the pump and stuff like that. You know, Robert, we've done it. Martial arts, try to fucking take 6 grams of citrulline. I told you, I took Hooligan when I did Muay Thai, and I thought it was the most horrible product I've ever taken. You know, it wasn't suitable for that for me. But then I know boxers who are taking Hooligan and they love it. You know, I don't know, maybe their muscles are smaller or they react differently. Who am I to criticize? You know, it's the same thing as Apollon Gym. You've been there. Apollon Gym is a hardcore environment. We have 5 treadmills that are barely even used. But then you go to a fitness center like Planet Fitness, they have 50 treadmills, and each and every treadmill is used. So is Planet Fitness a bad place? It's just not for me. You know, you pick a pre-workout that works for you, and everybody is different. And high stims, to be honest with you, even when we are saying high stims, I don't even know what that means, because high stims for, you know, I know, Robert, you taking, you know, lower stims usually product, but what's, you know, and maybe even higher stims of 600 or 700 milligram caffeine is too high for you, but it's not because you hate it. It's just you have your own preference, whatever works for your body. So, you know, we have to pick and choose what works for us, you know, and that's pretty much it.
Well, yeah, I think there's also a difference, like what can you handle versus what do you actually like and what. So, I mean, I can handle a full scoop of Assassin. I can handle a full scoop of Hooligan. I function just fine on that. Do I need that much? Do I really want that much?
Probably
no.
not.
And
Probably
I mean, like,
not.
optimal for me, or like my typical is somewhere between 250 and 350. Or if it's like, if I go to 400, it's usually split between like some immediate and then some long lasting stuff. So like today I'm running on 4 caps of overtime. I took that at 9 o'clock this morning. Which I've been finding that's been working really well for me on Saturdays, because I'll wake up early, I'll have my upper body training session, then I'm on podcasting for 2 to 3 hours after that, and then, you know, later on in the day we're usually texting, watching the UFC fight, so it kind of just keeps me coasting the whole day. As an end cap to Brooke's question, if she's asking specifically in regards to Apollon creating lighter formulas or gentler formulas, something that might be worthwhile is to check out Kumite, which only has 200 milligrams of caffeine, and then stack it with bare knuckle, which is the non-stim pump formula, or just buy some caffeine tabs and stack it with bare knuckle, and that'll get you in the lower stim profile, but you're still getting an efficacious doses of some good stuff. So you don't have to do a shameless pitch for your products, Robbie. I'll do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The thing is like we have to find out what works for you. And, the same, Scott touched up, I've also never denied the use of steroids or stuff like that. Even today, when I hear guys are saying, oh, I'm using 1,000 or 1,500 milligram of testosterone, I'm going like, whoa, that's a lot, But, it's either underdosed or maybe, the guy is a freak and he listened to some pro saying some bullshit. I don't know. But the thing is like you do what works for you. And if you want to do 1,000 milligram of caffeine, I mean, even today, we talked about this many times. These things, they have on average 300 milligram of caffeine. And I've seen them with my own eyes. People will walk into Apollon, say, for example, and we sell Hooligan by the scoop, and it's 600 milligram of caffeine. And the guy will walk in and say, like, I want something lighter today. And he will buy this. And then, because we sell them at the gym, and literally 30 minutes later, he's going to buy another one. You just put 600 milligram of caffeine without any pump ingredients, without anything else. You're using essentially the same thing, but you're saying like, oh, I want to take it easy on stems. 600 milligram of caffeine within half an hour to an hour. You're not using, low stem product.
Right. I have not tried Lukasz's Angel Dust yet, Brooke. I'm I'm waiting for the right opportunity. I think maybe we'll do. All right, so tomorrow I've got legs. I'm not taking Angel Dust before legs. I won't be able to catch my breath in time to do a next set. I'll do it Monday or Tuesday. That'll be an upper body day.
Next weekend podcast. Robert,
next weekend's podcast. Okay, oh yeah, for Robbie's birthday, we'll do that.
Yeah,
Robbie's birthday next Saturday. For any of the other listeners tuning in live stream, don't be afraid. Send your comments. We'll answer anything. Scott, we're at the 2-hour mark. Are you still good, or do you need to run?
I wouldn't mind just doing a bathroom break quickly. If you guys keep going, just give me
a
few
minutes. Go ahead.
I'll be right back.
You have 4.5 seconds.
Okay.
Anybody else need a potty break? Robbie, you have the old man bladder. You all right?
Okay.
What was I going to say? Oh, no, I want to get Scott's thoughts on the – so he used to work for MuscleTech. I want to get his thoughts on the rebrand, what he thinks of the packaging and all of that. So when he jumps back, let's get his opinions on that. And for all of you listeners out there, feel free to give us any questions you have about anything. It could be, what's your favorite pre-workout flavor? What flavor do you hate? What do you want to see Robbie do on his birthday next weekend?
I know that we are live, and I don't mind saying it anyway. Oh, I think this is actually one of the most interesting podcasts we've had. Very, very interesting. Very interesting.
He's putting on a seminar here, man. It's like I haven't spoken a whole lot this whole time, and I love it. It's wonderful.
I think we should be paying him for this. This is incredible. It's very, very interesting. We don't have to do shit.
Yeah, don't tell him. Just let him roll.
No, it's absolutely fascinating, and I think, like, you know what? Typically, we agree to disagree on certain things. Everything that he says actually makes sense, and it's totally comes from experience, and that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, he worked with 20 brands or something, so that's remarkable, especially for so many years, So his position in the industry is really big,
Yeah, I did not realize that. I didn't realize he had like the whole, run with MuscleTech before all of that. So that's
I knew some background, but I didn't knew that much, about Scott. So that's cool to hear, all the stories and everything. But yeah, I'm excited.
Robbie, I need my commission check on bare knuckle.
Done.
Awesome, Brooke. Thank you for supporting Robbie's.
Thank you so much.
Apollon. I just got my tub of bare knuckle this week, and I've already used it 4 times. So you'll enjoy it. Which flavor did you go with, Brooke? I have the jungle juice flavor here. Which, Robbie, you said it wasn't as good tasting. It may not taste as the same as the previous version, but it still tastes damn good.
I think it tastes good. It's just like I feel like there is a little bit, just very little of the. Not even bitterness, like, I don't know how to describe it. There is, like, it settles a little bit, but it's not necessarily bad. I suspect that it has to do with lion's mane or Vasa 6. What do you think?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, there's so many botanicals going on in there. Those aren't easy to cover up.
But I'll say this: it definitely better than I expected. I expected it to be not the greatest tasting, but it's definitely, for what's in it, it's good.
Yeah.
I was watching, I believe, TJ's review, and he also mentioned that the flavor is pretty good, but there is this aftertaste,
Yeah, there is a little bit. It's not even, I don't know if it's aftertaste, just like, I want to say bitterness. It's just like you feel something, but it's not bad. And at least, you know what, after you drink, you don't have, because you train, you don't feel bloat or anything like that, so it's fine.
Oh.
Paul ordered bare knuckle peach 50/50 peanut butter cookie. Yes. An Enigma acai berry. Never tried any of that before. You will not be disappointed. The 50/50 PV cookie is, it is so hard. Like now, it used to be a toss-up between peanut butter cookie and the chocolate protein. Now that y'all released the freaking salted caramel macchiato, I don't. I mean, it's like a three-way toss-up now. You're spoiling me.
Hey, Rob, did you try the protein with vodka already?
I have not tried it with vodka yet. I might do that tonight while I'm watching the UFC fights.
What a break.
Try just a bit with
just a little
with
nip. I mean, that thing is so smooth. I could just drink the whole bottle, man. I would be knocked out and just nipping on the bottle by itself.
You know what? I don't typically drink alcohol, but I'm gonna do what Robert did with Sandy Live. I still can't believe those freaks did it. I'm gonna try Chainsaw with vodka next week.
You're gonna enjoy it.
Which one did you do? The raspberry? What was it?
Yeah, we did raspberry lemonade with the Zubroka.
Oh, Zubroka, yeah. Okay.
Or you can also use, if you find a lemon vodka, you can do that too. Uh-oh, Scott's taking us into his lair.
There we go. Sorry, guys. I go over here, and then we're good. Just 1 second.
We're going into Scott's secret lair.
Yeah, that's right. There we go. Sorry about that, guys.
Scott,
Robert, you had a question, right?
Yeah, Scott. So you had a long tenure with MuscleTech. What do you think of their rebranding that they did, or the refresh they did on the packaging and whatnot?
You know what? They get a lot of flack over the years, but if you get to know them, I mean, they own part of the school of University of Toronto, which is, they have a human performance laboratory there, and they're doing real research. Like the stuff you see in the videos that's no bullshit. They're really doing this stuff, and they funded. They also bought. When I was there, we bought part of the Greenhoff patent on creatine. So Dr. Paul Greenhoff in the UK. He's the leading creatine researcher in the world. So they bought part of his school. Like they funded part of his school, his department, and that came with his patent that he had on the use of carbohydrates or other insulin-stimulating macronutrients with creatine. And that was a multi-year partnership there. And so that gave them access to the effects of creatine on genes and so many other things. But that really wasn't... I think they could have done an even better job of marketing some of that. They've done a lot of things, of bursaries for students, which you don't really hear about this stuff. And charity, I've never heard of them talk about the charity that the donations that they make to charity that you never hear about. So in terms of the changes, though, they got the company ready at the time to sell, which Lukasz will know this, that there was a lot of products launched in a very short period of time, which what most supplement companies do when they're going to sell is they have these bridges I talked about earlier. They now start to know, okay, in 3 years, I need to sell. I want to sell, not that I need to sell. So I'm going to start adding more flavors. I'm going to start adding more SKUs. I'm going to start adding this in a steady way. You can't do it overnight because, first of all, you can't produce that many products that fast.
Right.
But they, over time, launched a lot of products steady. That was, I was there for 6.5 years. I saw this happening and I said, this is not like the owner to do this. There must be something happening here. So by the time that they did that, and you saw a number of different things that they tried over the years, they also had that True Grit, which was, I think, a bodybuilding.com exclusive.
Yep, I remember that line.
Then they had a women's line. They had Epic, which was a GNC exclusive that was there. That was a phenomenal idea at the time because you're really doing a private label brand with GNC that doesn't look like a GNC brand.
Right.
And the consumer doesn't see GNC anywhere, so they wonder why the consumer is always pushing Pro Performance or Nature's Fingerprint or Epic or, so that kind of... So in terms of the rebrand, when the company sold to Zhuang, I think it gave them phenomenal opportunities because now in the China market, this is a company based in China, they could just take it to a whole other level over there. And penetrating the China market in a big scale is very expensive, and there's a lot of regulatory barriers. So that gave them a lot more scale that they could do things at. But I almost feel like because they launched so many products before, those things, I don't think there was as much thought put into what do we do if some of these products don't stick. And so I think they needed to do a rebrand to kind of get away from the past of who they were known for and to be known for something a little different. The other thing I really like about what they did is, if you notice that they've used the same names.
Yeah.
So you'll see a, say, Amino build, and then you'll see, say, their testosterone booster, Test, is it Test HD? I'm trying to remember, I think it's Test HD. But you'll see that they have an elite version, and then they have a pro series version, but it's the same brand name. And I think that this is smart because you're going to have Google now acknowledging two different products. One is a mass market version, one is a specialty version, but the same brand name, but different look, different formula. But at least it's the same name. That saves you trademark costs. And that also helps you with in an international company in all these countries. That's a lot. If it's $2,000 per country, you can imagine how much cost it is to sell in over 100 countries. So now through Google, you're getting a name recognition from a mass market consumer who's typing in what they got in Walmart with the same brand name as what you would have got in the specialty channel. So I like the rebrand that they did. I liked how the color of, I think it's the platinum silver looking ones are the more amped up version of it. I think the black ones are for, you'll see it in specialty channel and you see it in some mass market locations. And then they have an outright mass market line, which is, I think, the, it's like a muscle and fitness series or something. It's white. And you see that in Sam's Club and you see that in Walmart and places like that.
Right.
What I like about all of them is it has a sporty look, enough to sort of not offend anyone, but not be too alienating.
Right.
But for them, it makes sense because they have hydroxycut, one of the top diet pills in North America. So they can leverage that Costco relationship. They can leverage that Walmart relationship and get distribution in those places. But so for them, it was the right move to reinvent themselves there as a whole. I think they did a good job.
Perfect. Going forward, what do you see for Muscle Insider in the supplement industry with the ever-changing landscape of how things are?
Well, with 2021, we're trying to recover. Obviously, every business is trying to recover from COVID. I see that from a different aspect of it, for your audience with the supplement industry, I see that the direct-to-consumer business is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. I think you're going to see immunity still be top of mind as a solidified category that the consumer is going to want to always now get. I think that immunity is here to stay. I think that the on-the-go nutrition bars and energy drinks, I think, is just getting started. I think that Dan Larenko did a good job of explaining that with the other 3D energy drink and the Ghost energy drink. Both that it's such a big market with Monster and Bang and everybody else that there's lots of room there. And I think you're going to see the production runs for energy drinks reduce. So you're going to see more companies able to get in there.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the real problem in the past is you have the minimum run could be 250,000 units. So what prevented these other companies, energy drink companies, from forming? But now you're seeing, some of these smaller canning companies coming up with 50,000 unit runs and things like that. So I think you're going to see more of that. I think that there's going to be more transparency. Consumers are going to want more and more of that, I think, on every level. And transparency isn't just on your label, it's also on who is the owner.
Exactly, yeah.
I want to know more about this brand that I'm buying into. And I think that Ghost has done a really good job, Redcon's done a really good job of showing that here's me, and First Form has done a good job of here's our building, here's our warehouse, here's our manufacturing. I think also NutriBio, which I believe you do some work for, I think they've done a really good job with Mark Glazier saying, this is who it is, and this is my FDA inspection I just survived. And being more transparent with some of the wins and some of the losses, I think people, I liked when you guys took a shot at Price Plow in terms of some of the reviews maybe. I think it was TJ was attacking the style of the reviews. And Dan said, I'd like to see some reviews that actually maybe the flavor aren't that preferable to the person. There'd be more legitimacy. So I think the consumer is bang on, but they want to see both sides of it a little bit more.
Right.
I tried to do a little bit more of that lately to sort of say, hey, I liked the chocolate. I like it better than the vanilla, but maybe you're a vanilla person. Maybe you want to mix it with fruits and smoothies and things like that. But
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's a supplement. And if your diet isn't good and your training isn't good, then the supplement's not going to make up for a bad diet, you know? So it really is a supplement to a good diet and a good training program. And I think you have to say that in your reviews of it. In terms of Muscle Insider, we'll continue to do our digital stuff. We'll continue to try new things, supplement reviews, SEO-enabled product reviews, you know, IFBB pro shows. I mean, we covered the Olympia. We'll continue to cover things in Canada more so. I think the one thing I'm 2021 going to focus on is, and I talked to Shane Smith a bit about this last year, is I really need to carve out my audience of Canada. And like, I'm known in Canada. I have all the network here. I have to stick to what my brand is about, which is you guys are Canadian fitness, you know, and that's what my thing is. And with Muscle Insider. So I changed our handle to Canada's #1 fitness magazine. I used to use that. I stopped using that. I went back to it now because I realized I have to stick my foot in the ground. I can't compete with RX Muscle and NPC News and Flex Online and all these bigger businesses in the US. I have to stick to my core competence. And so using technology like this, I'm going to continue to interview Canadians that are competing at these shows, like Chris Bumstead. You know, he did his new C-Bum with Jack Factory.
Jack Factory, yeah.
So I'll cover that, but I won't cover if Evan Santapani does his own line because it's not relevant to who this brand is, this platform is supposed to be about. And if Apollon says, hey, you know what? We want to distribute in Canada. Can you introduce me to someone who does the regulatory affairs for Canada? I'll say, you know what? I got a great guy. And I got a contract manufacturer based in Canada who's all in current with the laws, who can make pre-workouts, who can make EAAs, and I also know a distributor because there's 5 here. And I'll connect you with both of those people. And then in time, maybe you'll say, hey, you know what? I want to do something for a review on the Canadian version of Hooligan.
Yeah.
Who else is doing that? No one else is doing that. So that's kind of where I sell product reviews on the Canadian formula, not on the US formula, because I realize that even MuscleTech review, the formula in Canada is different on the grass-fed whey, I believe, than it is on the US. I think it is. ISO Whey Clear, I think it is. Different Canadian version than the US version. So I want to be the authority on fitness and sports supplements in this area because this is what I'm known for. You know, like we're on dog sleds up here. And I think my mistake is trying to be a competitor to Generation Iron and some of the US. That's all they do. You know, they're based there, and I'm not. And so we have in Canada now 3 pro shows a year, and in the US there's a pro show every weekend. There's at least 2 or 3 usually. You know,
right? Yeah.
So I have to stick to my core competence and keep my overhead down, and be willing to do more for less. That's really what it comes down to as a media source.
Gotcha. While we're on the subject of product reviews, Muscle Insider, you have to sell advertisements. So you're obviously getting advertisements either from supplement companies or some other kind of fitness outlets, maybe equipment shops or anything like that. But at the same time, you're doing product reviews. How do you maintain integrity while you're trying to sell ad space? So you're getting money from these companies, but at the same time, you've got to try and be as authentic and unbiased as possible while you're potentially risking maybe giving a negative review and they're pulling their ad dollars, or you just don't review products of people that are advertising on your site. It's just, how do you approach that?
You know what's funny about this is I knew you guys were going to ask that. I thought TJ was going to attack me on that one on this show. And so my wife and I, she was doing ad sales for us for a long time. It comes down to this, is I've had a different background than you 3. I've been sued for, as I said, over $100 million. And when you're named personally in a lawsuit like that, and you go and talk to your lawyer, and they said, no. I said to them, well, what if my employer is going to pay for this, right? And they said, if they go bankrupt, they're not. And I was like, well, no, I just worked at the company. So I've learned the hard way that you can be right and you can be the whistleblower. But I remember blowing the whistle on Ultimate Nutrition signed John Cena. No one even knew. And I called them out on a blog post I did about that and how stupid it was. That why would you sign someone so famous and not actually tell everybody about it? I was getting hired to do consulting for them. The night before I got there, the head of marketing said, "Do you realize what you wrote?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course I did. That was like a year ago." And he goes, "Yeah, but if the owner sees this, he's going to definitely not hire you for consulting." And I said, "But it's true." And he goes, "Well, I know that. They should have done a better job of a press release than that, but it's not going to look good when you show up in his office and you've said that about his company." So I realize that in journalism now, you can blow the whistle up to a point. But the one thing I've learned about supplement company owners is most of them are from the bodybuilding industry. A lot of them are. They never forget. They never forget a bodybuilder will never forget when you've humiliated them, and they'll carry a grudge. They're spiteful. And about this industry, somebody who used to work at VPX will work at ProSups. Somebody who used to work at Gasperi will work over with another supplement company. Someone who used to work over at Dymatize will work at Cellucor. Someone who works at Cellucor will work over at. That's how it goes. And so you don't know that the bridge you're burning now with your being the whistleblower, how it's going to affect you later. And at the time, you feel like you're telling the truth, but you can tell the truth and not have any money to boost your ads anymore. And you can have yourself be right. And then you say to yourself, geez, I didn't realize. Like I had one time a guy, he was a fan of some of the stuff I did. I used to do a blog site called supplementgenius.com. And he sent me the product. I opened it and it clumped. There's 4 giant clumps all through it. And I actually said, this product, beautiful packaging, beautiful name. The product tastes great. The only thing they missed was they should have added the desiccant packs a little bit more because it seemed to clump. I never heard from him again. And then I couldn't get any advertising ever. And then later when I started Muscle Insider, I knocked on this other company's door. And then the guy said, "Yeah, you might remember me. I used to work over at such and such." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, great." I thought I was in.
Yeah.
Never. It took actually about 3 years. And the only time he would actually even talk to us about advertising was when my wife, who joined the company, then went up to talk to him because he remembered the negative review that I did. So that in lawsuits, what I've learned is we take a positive approach. We try to find the good in things. So maybe it's the labels. Maybe it's the social media accounts and the lifestyle that they have. Maybe it's the fact that they are banned substance tested with informed choice, and you can find this widely available. It's in Walmart and it's in this. I try to find the good, but I try not to, because I can sling mud at anybody's company, and I can say they could have added the compound solution stuff. They could have added the Nutrition 21's brand of chromium picolinate, and they could have, and NNB Nutrition's got this, and they should have added this. But at the end of the day, all supplement companies have got sales from some consumer base, and some of these people are putting, this is their life work, this is their creation. And I find with supplement company owners that I've worked with close to 40, but I've lost 39. Because in the early days, I was very honest. I would tell them, your logo's terrible. These labels are awful, not realizing the husband and wife are the ones who created the logo, Gotcha. But I'm coming in telling them the truth. And it's like that, A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. I've had, I did some work for some companies. If I named them, you'd laugh. I know you know them. And I remember this person telling me this is what it will be. It will be a blood builder. And I said, a blood builder? So you mean a nitric oxide stimulator? Are you saying a pump product? No, it will just build your blood. Okay, so it's like EPO. Well, not like EPO. It's got, and he starts naming all these vasostimulators. Okay, well, the category is the pump product category, or it's the pre-workout category. Which is it? Because the brain, one thing about marketing is everything has to fit into a drawer. If you ever look at companies who try to combine or create categories, like you're now seeing, obviously, the glucose disposal agents has slowly become a bit of a category. But you have a glucose disposal product that also is a creatine stimulant or a diuretic that happens to also be a test booster. sometimes people can't, if it doesn't fit into a drawer, it doesn't fit.
Right.
Is there a ketogenic weight gain powder? It doesn't fit in your brain. We had Thermogain at MuscleTech. It was a fat burner that had creatine. So it was you're going to gain and you're going to have thermogenesis. It's a Thermogain.
Yeah.
The problem is people think if I'm losing weight and I'm not building muscle as I'm losing. And then you can say, well, yeah, but if you use steroids and you take halotestin, you won't gain, you'll grow into a show. And you can make all these examples up.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes in the supplement world, it's either I'm building or I'm losing.
Correct,
and
yeah.
have to fit that drawer to have them accept it.
Yeah.
So I try to find the good in the review. And that's for self-preservation. That's also the fact that, hey, if this company is using me to help them sell more product, then I have to answer, to someone, like one of you guys, and you're saying, I want to see an increase in sales. They're not calling me because they just like me and I'm a truth teller and I know a lot and they want to actually give me $2,000. Like they're not. I have to show that I can help them. Maybe like one of the things I thought that Dan Lorenko did a really good job last week was he said, and Robert, when you were at Price Plow, I'd look at your reviews and I was like, man, this guy does a really good job explaining the science of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see that with Ghost, as he said the other day, is that, like on Ghost's website, they maybe go, hey, legend, this is who you are. And it's weekends here. And thank God it's Friday. And here's the running shoes. And here's the Big Macs. And, but now when you turn to this other site, you sort of see stacked. He has his flavor, which is more on the cost per servings, how many doses, who's the brand, like a little bit more of the, almost like a distributor and a retailer would really appreciate. And there's some consumer, but he doesn't over science the science.
Right.
Whereas I think you do a really good job of explaining the science of some of these ingredients. And I think Blog Talk Radio, he gets into a little bit of that with these niche companies, and everybody has their thing. So I think that I would like to focus more on the science of a formula, maybe the good things of the of the product, who the company is, who's behind this company, because you don't see that on an Instagram profile, or sometimes these guys are shy, and you don't see Mark Glazer often in front of the camera.
No.
You see some other people doing that, and I think that today's consumer wants to know what are they buying into, and so I try to make the review a little bit more, so that's kind of. And I've had small companies come to me and, hey, can I market your product? And I like them to say, okay, well, I'm not saying I would use this stuff myself every day. This isn't my thing. But if I'm looking at it as a person in the industry that can influence maybe a buyer at a retail store or a distributor, this is these are the positives that I can find in this product. And it's either that or I don't get any ad dollars at all, and then I can't pay my server fee, And I'd rather have a website that I can at least boost a post on Facebook and know I have reached a certain amount of people, or, they compare my YouTube numbers with someone else's YouTube numbers, and I have to compete with someone else. And if the someone else is lying about how many, pardon my language, how many friggin' magazines they're printing, and they're willing to say they print 50,000 copies, and I know that they can't possibly do that because I can count how many pages there are, and I can now calculate how much money they're making. If they're lying about, I think that to me is more unethical than simply, leaving out some of the things people might not like about a product and highlighting some of that. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to melt fat away and you don't have to exercise it. I'm not going to go that far, but I try to, stick around with what I can comfortably say is true, the best of my ability. I know that's not what what is a perfect world.
That's fair. Everybody approaches it differently, and that's what I just wanted to get your insight on it, because everybody kind of approaches it from different angles, and there's no, it's all just opinion based anyway. I mean, we can quote the science on like dosages and stuff like that, but everybody's experience, how they perceive the taste, how they react to it, how they come down from a something like a pre-workout, it's highly individualistic, and there's going to be a lot of inter-individual differences that are going on. So that's why I just like to pick your brains, or Gerhard's from Fitness Informant, or TJ's, anybody's, with things like that. So that's a good thing. What does your daily supplement intake look like?
I'm like, first of all, with the background I have with nutrition, I believe the diet should be the first thing that you should be making sure you have under control. But before you have that, you have to have a goal. And we all know with COVID, it's challenged all of us to know, well, what is your real goal for your physique? If I can't go to the gym because the gyms are locked, do I really feel motivated to eat right? If my friend just lost their job or my parents are crying on the phone, do I really feel tonight like, and my wife wants to, get some ice cream? Am I the guy who's saying, no, 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 because at exactly 10 minutes, I have to have my chicken and my rice? Sometimes I think this last year has really challenged a lot of people. So I think you have to have, first of all, your goals for your body. And then I think nutrition becomes the very first thing. I think from that, I think a multivitamin should be taken every day. I know there's some people who disagree with that, but in my program at nutrition, that was one of the things they said to us, is they said, we'll give you 1 hour off the record. These are the top people in our school, at our university. One helped make the Canada Food Guide, good or bad, but she was a Harvard PhD, so she's phenomenal. And they said, off the record, the nutrition quality of our food is so bad, and the soil cultivation is so much, and the processing and everything else, that as an insurance policy, you'd be well to have a multivitamin, just to make sure you have enough cadmium and biotin and the different ingredients that might be there, selenium and magnesium and manganese and some of these trace elements, riboflavin, vitamin D. I think that's the number one thing. Number two to that is I believe that most people should be taking creatine. I think creatine has been proven. I was interviewed last week or earlier this week by Nutrition Business Journal about the use of creatine. Can it be a mainstream supplement? And when I looked at the research that Dr. Kreider had put out in terms of the summary of all the research that's out there, there's studies that show it increases fat loss, which I didn't know. Bill Phillips, I went to his wedding anniversary, and he was telling me that Pfizer is working on a patent on the use of creatine for treating Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And it's creatine combined with coenzyme Q10 and alpha lipoic acid. Those three ingredients together, because you have brain cells are fired by ATP. The backup source to ATP is phosphocreatine. So if you can increase the brain's levels of creatine phosphate, which you can increase by between 5 to 14%, I believe, based on the research, you can have better memory with using creatine. And so they used to think it was just stored in the muscle, but it's actually stored also in the brain. Now there's more of it in the muscle. Of course, you can increase it up to 40%. But anyway, so that's something I think creatine is very beneficial. I think flaxseed oil, we take in not enough omega-3. So offsetting the ratios between omega-3, omega-6, omega-9 by increasing flaxseed oil intake, I think that's healthy. But if you're having all kinds of fish oil and fish in your diet because you're somebody who follows, maybe eat sushi quite a bit, or maybe you eat some other foods, you have to match that. For myself, I like that. I like to take an EAA product during. I think it's effective. It makes a lot of sense to take that. I'm a fan of the MCT oil powder by NNB Nutrition, the C8 Advantage. I like that it's 95% C8. So I think that in my coffee, I think is very good. I think it's also another scam I didn't know about is most MCT powder is made of maltodextrin and casein. I didn't know the powder was actually maltodextrin. So you can label it as MCT powder and you're not labeling it as maltodextrin. So a scam that some companies do is they put MCT powder inside things to get around the rules of calling it maltodextrin. So, but by them, they have a tapioca fiber, so you're taking a fiber as the powder, so it doesn't impact insulin to that level. But if you're ketogenic and you're taking maltodextrin in your MCT powder, it's counterintuitive, It's,
exactly, yeah. Do you follow a keto diet since you're taking the C8?
I've tried it. I've experimented with it, but I haven't followed it long enough to get rid of that brain fog and and that transition for the cravings that you have. And when you're working, I need to keep my brain able to sleep well at night. I have to keep my serotonin levels normal to feel positive. So I've tried to. I found the one thing I love about my recommendation on dieting is the best diet's the one you can follow, one you can stick to.
Agreed.
If you can't stick to low fat, and you'd be better off to be able to stick to low carb, and you can follow it for long enough to get lean enough, then that's the right diet for you. But from talking to Lyle McDonald, one of the founders of the whole ketogenic movement, one of the first authors in this area in sports nutrition, he was the assistant to Dan Duchesne for formulations, etc., is that there's slight advantages to that. Metabolically, there's a little bit more of inefficiency in a ketogenic diet, so you can lose a few of the extra calories that aren't converted efficiently to doing by doing a ketogenic diet. But if you can't last for more than 4 weeks on it, then you're going to give up, and then you're going to be back to frustration. So I find that the best advice is the dietitian approach, which is write down everything you're eating. How do I do eliminations of some of the foods that are not supposed to be on your diet? How do I have you space your meals out to be, a little bit more gap between meals? How do I have you, switch from eating white bread to maybe having brown bread, then no bread? Like, how do I slowly move you to behaviorally a better, cleaner diet, rather than assume that, you will just follow this diet and eat egg whites and tuna? Not everybody will do that, and it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, is knowing your target market. If it's a bodybuilder, they're going to follow anything. They'll eat shit if they have to, but it's a matter of the diet you can stick to.
Correct.
Long enough to get results. So anyway, there's my long answer for you.
Awesome. Perfect. Robbie, Lucas, you guys have any other questions before we close things out here? Or a last call for questions from the viewers that are hanging with us?
I'm okay, man. We already put quality time to this interview, and we truly appreciate your timing, Scott.
Yeah, Scott. You are a bevy of information, man. This was like you could have probably charged for all the marketing and advertising stuff you put out today. This has been a very usually these podcasts are like we bullshit and banter about a few things. This was like a master class and a bunch of stuff. So this was really awesome, man. Thank you for your knowledge and your time with this. This was awesome.
Thank you for doing what you guys do. I've watched this for a bit. I really like the Supplement Engineer name. I think it's cool with the gears and everything like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's probably my nerdiness and everything, so it works well.
No, and I listened to your advice, and each time I'm listening to these episodes, and I'm like, wow, these guys are so into the stems and so into the nootropics, and they know exactly the dose, and they do this because they love it. You're making a living with your hobby, which you guys love. And Lucas, I just seeing the passion that you have for Prometeus, they're very fortunate to have you. And you're always the guy that everybody, it's funny that everybody I know who knows something about Europe, they name you, Sander, they name a few guys, and it's like, oh, that Lucas guy, he's always got the scoop. And, obviously with Apollon, I really like what you do is staying true to being hardcore. I like your brutal honesty. I like that your references to different parts around the world. Like a few episodes ago, you talked about your trip to Thailand and some of the things there. And I like obviously Shane and what he does is everybody in the industry watches what he's doing and really applauds it. What I like about what he's got going is he doesn't fucking care. Like if you don't want to advertise, he doesn't care. If you do want to advertise, great. But he doesn't change his morals either way. And he's not really there to make a buck, And I said to him one time in Las Vegas, I said, if you had more locations on your site to advertise, you could make more money. Because on the other side, just recommending clients and you see the ad space all gone, you're like, man, so, and he said, I don't fucking care. I make enough money doing it exactly this way. And I really, I applaud that, him and his wife are in that position to be able to do that. And, but all of you guys, and TJ, he's not here, but I think his reviews are just awesome. I laugh my ass off at some of the way he does.
Crazy grandpa.
I was watching, I was like, fuck, I wish I could do that. Because obviously he really has access to all the hardcore stuff in the US, but really speaks his mind. And I just think it's fantastic what the work you guys do.
I'm gonna say this, that I just realized that's the first time, I think, first episode that I didn't fucking talk shit about anyone. I just didn't get a chance. This is the nicest I've been. I'm thinking maybe I should call a doctor or something, because something is wrong with me. But in all honesty, Robert is right. This was a pure masterclass. And you know what? I'm actually going to say that this is something that I personally would love to have a sequel to, because this was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate, again, it was a masterclass. There is no other words to describe it. Thank you so much, Scott.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. And I look forward to sharing this with our audience and anybody who's out there. I can't wait till they, I tell people like it was like a badge, doing a post last night on I'm going to be on the, the Supplement Engineer podcast, and it's the final scoop. And I tell my parents this morning, they're like, what is this? I'm like, it's a bunch of guys like me that are spending Valentine's weekend doing this, and then showing my wife you guys. And she's like, so you guys are going to talk about, how long does this thing last? I'm like, about 2 hours. 2 hours talking about supplements. And I'm like, don't worry, my wife puts up with this shit all day. Like all afternoon, I'm talking like this to her. And, did you know what this company did? And Ghost just dropped this. And, and she's just so sick of it that it was fun to do this with you guys.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for the honor of having a chance.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, man, we really appreciate it, Scott. Thank you very much. And for all the listeners that are tuning in, thank you as well. We appreciate your participation. And if you're catching this on the replay, make sure to drop us a comment. If you have any questions for Scott on a future episode, let us know. Make sure to like, comment, and share, and leave us a 5-star review. And thank you very much, Scott, again. And we will catch you next time on the Final Scoop.
Hey, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you.